All right, I want to say greetings to everyone. I would like to say greetings in the best of salutations. There will be prayer, power, peace, patience, and prosperity. I want to thank you all for coming out and being a part of this dialogue, discussion, and exchange as it pertains to the consequences of the emotional suppression. I call it the restoration project. The reason why I call it that, because that which needs to be restored, I call it social credibility. Credible to be impeccable with our word, and that happens to do with integrity. My name is Kevin Patrick. Some call me Wally Moon. I got two first names, Kevin and Patrick. So someone told me that that's kind of dangerous when a person got two first names. It means to say, I am a loving, caring, and passionate guy. And since I said that, please make your donations to me. Oh, man. You know, one thing I realized about a smile is not a Japanese or Asian or African. A smile is still a what? A smile. Yes, it is.
Universal.
Yeah. Universal, yeah. So yeah, we want to deal with the, like once again, the emotional suppression causes and the consequences. We want to get to a point where we want to, get, the goal is psychological stability. The goal is psychological stability. And we know that we're dealing with what we call associated with a pandemic, at least, this is going to be shut down. We're dealing with a pandemic, and a lot of mixed emotions go in with this pandemic, you know. So some emotion that we suppress, you know, and then we find a way of somehow or another letting them out if we don't deal with it, you know. So hopefully we can do our best to be able to deal with our emotions, and hopefully we have some panel. The panel will help us to understand the importance of dealing with these human emotions, which are real, by the way. And three of these panels have been with each other of getting the dross off the gold, and what was the other one we did, fellas? Marching forward in the midst of the
Breaking barriers.
And breaking barriers toward healing, because everything is about, you know, the healing process, you know, the healing process. And we're going to start with the introduction of each panelist from right to left, and that would be from your left to right. The first brother will be Brother Steve of Buddhist Temple. I have known this guy not too long, but I was going to the temple, and he was picking me up and taking me there, and he had no reservations about it. I mean, serious. And he even called me today and said, man, do you need a ride, you know? And I did not get a ride from him. I should have, because I had problems with getting a ride here.
Told you.
Yeah. So we thought we bring Brother Steve in, and because of his 37 years of, I call the new wave of Buddhism, you know, of chanting Nang Yang Rang Yang Go. And it's about the healing process as well. Steve may give you he will have no problem giving you a display or a illustration of the chant. But before he does that, say a little bit about yourself, Steve.
Oh, okay, so thanks a lot for inviting me. It's nice to meet all of you, and it's nice to get out sometimes and meet people in person. I meet so many people on Zoom sometimes. This is really great. And anyway, so So as Kevin mentioned, I'm a Buddhist. I've been a Buddhist for a long time. In real life, I'm a scientist. I work for the Army. I do biochemistry research in a kind of different realm, but I find that that actually sort of my benefit of like in Buddhist practice, we try to create some harmony, and then for myself, I think because although I work for the Army, and most people who work for the Army doing research, kind of developing better, quicker, cheaper ways to kill people, actually I've been able to do really valuable, positive kinds of things, in my work there for the last 32 years, and so there's not any discord between what I think is important as a Buddhist and then what I do that they give me money for. So that's my benefit, and a lot of other things too. I have a wonderful wife I've been married to for 33 years, and she's tolerated me. We actually get along really well in all this time. It's pretty amazing. And so anyway, nice to meet all of you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
All right. Next we have Brother Dennis Asar Winkler. Dennis Asar Winkler is on the path of getting his PhD. Yes, that's good stuff. So he's soon to be called a DR, doctor. Also, he's the chief minister of this facility here. So in all that he do, he operates. Say a little bit about yourself, Dr. Winkler.
Peace.
Peace. Peace.
My name is Brother Dennis Asar Winkler. A little about myself. I guess spent the time with my family and my wife. My anniversary was was it Thursday? Thursday, the 26th.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. She's somewhere. She's back there. 21 years, married at 21, and it's 21 years Thursday.
Wow.
26 years together. Met her when I was 16. We have two, can I say beautiful sons?
Yes.
That's some of the spiritual energy transfers between us, and we created two beautiful sons. And also, I'm the founder of this facility. As Kevin said, they use the word minister and these other type of things. I just say I'm also a mental health clinician. I studied at Loyola, just for the record, because I kind of failed to mention this. Spiritually integrated psychology as a master's degree level, and then pastoral counseling program. And then right now I'm at Waynesburg University as a PhD candidate. I'm just finalizing my dissertation, which is on race-based traumas, what is it called? The intersection or relationship between race-based trauma, spirituality, and Black identity. So that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. You said a little bit about him, huh? Sure, you could have fooled me. All right, now we have Brother Paul Thompson. Tell a little bit about yourself, Paul. Now, how long we known each other, Paul?
Probably about 15 to 20 years.
15, 20 years, yeah. Brother Paul Thompson. Tell a little bit about yourself, Paul.
Yeah, I'm basically a student of universal law, and my life's work has been studying energy flow. And so, starting off very young, I have interacted with the spirit world, which has given me incredible insight. So I feel kind of like I'm a spiritual scientist, because of things that I have experienced and things that I have been able to tap into. And just a fascinating journey, and I am an author of a new book, Stop Making This So Hard. And the title was originally Discovering a Purposeful Life, and my business partner said, put something sexy with it so the young people will pick it up. So that's how I ended up saying Stop Making So Hard, Discovering a Purposeful Life. And I'm a fourth generation Washingtonian.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And finally, we have Mr. Marcus and Nick. Share a little bit about yourself, bro.
Peace, everyone.
Peace.
My name is Marcus Senko Nix. I am a longtime member here at Neville's Wellness Center. I have just recently finished my stint in grad school in the master's program right down the street at Morgan State University, where I focus my studies primarily on African American studies. And I also am an educator in the Howard County Public School System, such for 12 years, working with, where I have worked with middle and high school students, teaching African American studies, mentoring, and taking a lot of what I've learned here and applying that from a community-based approach to the programs that I've been able to implement in Howard County and beyond. And so along the way, especially recently, I've tended to evolve and acquire tidbits of knowledge, and I've been able to enhance my skill set as it pertains to that which many would refer to as a historian. And so in that field, as a historian, the studies don't just take you to events and moments and time periods of the past, but it's a discipline that incorporates the psychology, the sociology, economics, spirituality, many other aspects of study discipline holistically. And so I'm glad to be here. I'm humbled to be here. And thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Well, give him a fan, man. All right, I'll be facilitating this. Common Humanity Mission presents the causes and consequences of emotional suppression. I think we're going to do this in about 10 parts, I believe, 10 stages and phases, as I call it. But what I would do is, as we just introduce the panelists, I'm going to read something, and then we're going to get into the dialogue in the exchange that pertains to this discussion, or the topic of the discussion.
Excuse me. Can I just say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
When the student is ready, the teacher will show up.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. It is common to feel stress symptoms before and after a crisis. Both natural and human-caused disasters can have a devastating impact. The emotional tug or pull on you. People live our lives. The physical injury, psychological, mental, and emotional injury. Possibly, this can be questioned. The spiritual damage will depress you due to the extent of the damage we have learned or that we have experienced. We are only responding and reacting due to the extent of the damage of the injury that has been done to our humanity. So humanity, it sounds like it's something that is tied to the earth. A question of concern, I'm going to pause right there. Do the panel, do you all feel that emotional suppression somehow or another is tied to the earth? And if it's tied to the earth, how does agriculture comes into play? And when agriculture comes into play, then culture comes into play. A question I throw out there to one of you all to respond to.
Can you repeat that?
When it comes comes to the extent and the injury that has been done to us, our humanity, when it comes to the causes and consequences of emotional suppression, I said it's tied to the earth. If it's tied to the earth, if it's tied to agriculture, when it's tied to agriculture, it is tied to culture. So is culture then something that can emotionally, is it something that is emotionally suppressing?
My response to that would be that no one can truly suppress your emotion. That is something that one has the resource to do, him or herself. And so you can create and manifest perception that someone has the ability to do that. And that creates the blockage. So for me, the understanding of the universe is an energy of flow. And once you open your channels of communication up in the spirit realm of flow, there is no resistance. Resistance only comes through perception. Perception is connected to the physical world, but not the spirit.
Anyone wants to comment down?
Yeah, well, I mean, in kind of a practical way, if you look back at the agricultural revolution about 11,000 years ago or so.
Yes, sir.
So that was a time when, you know, society became kind of concentrated in cities, and we started living very close together. You know, prior to that, people were basically hunter-gatherers. There weren't so many people. They were out walking around, just in very small groups. You know, I mean, one thing that comes out of that as a practical matter is things like, you know, coronavirus pandemic. And so it very much affects, you know, coming out of agriculture affects, you know, all of us. I mean, lots of people have had, you know, lots of emotional difficulties, you know, realistically, since, you know, the last year and a half or so with this pandemic. And so, yes, I think, you know, it affects, you know, and then culturally, I mean, shoot, people can't even go to a concert anymore. You know, it's very difficult to get together, and, you know, some people have, you know, people they live with and they're very close to, it's not so bad. Other people are, you know, very, very lonely, you know, for a long time now. It's very difficult, I think.
Yeah, I would say, culture. You say culture. I got lost on the earth. I'm not that smart. Okay, you know, I'm trying to figure that one out. You may have to give that to somebody else. But as far as culture, absolutely, culture. Some would say the lack of culture. I just say culture, which creates, you know, cultivates, which brings about certain. Culture absolutely has an effect on one's emotion and the way that we feel, the way that we deal with our emotions, the way that we don't deal with our emotions. Culture actually also defines what we consider mental illness. Culture defines how we deal. In fact, in America, men, not just men, but men, which is known as men are very emotionally retarded, excuse me. But what happens is, I'm just throwing it out there for a little shock value, but I'm being honest that we don't typically learn to tap into our emotions. Hence, we have a lot of issues. We have a lot of issues because suck it up, man up, don't be a punk, you know, all these type of things, what teaches one to suppress and or repress to a degree their emotions. Hence, when we get into relationships, when we're trying to start businesses, when we're trying to do things, what happens is we can't handle the heat. So yes, the culture of this here country itself is guilty of creating men and women. I'm just saying it's safer to deal with men when you're a man sometimes, but especially men who can't deal.
I would say that if I understood what you were asking, when I think of the suppression of emotion, I'm thinking of that which perhaps an individual or a group of people have not being able to release, not having a channel in which to outwardly channel one's energy. So going through harsh realities, going through stress, going through turbulent times, going through different things, and even things that might not be considered negative, devastating, harmful. I believe that it's healthy to find outlets to be able to funnel and channel emotion. And based on an individual or group's ability to express and not suppress the emotion, that can impact the culture in which they operate and in which they live. So I work with a lot of young people, I have in the past, and a lot of times they have pent up anger, they have pent up hostility, they have pent up frustration, they have pent up resentment. Parents did something to them, somebody walked out on them, somebody lied to them, or whatever. They haven't perhaps had somebody to listen to them, or they may think somebody doesn't want to listen to them, even if the person has opened up themselves to listen, or they might think that expressing themselves is a sign of weakness, as I started alluding to, for men, or whatever the case may be. So then what may happen then is, because of the suppression emotionally, then it can impact the body internally. And so the body can implode, and then a message could be sent to the body. And I've come to realize that many times the body will try to find a way to release. It'll get your attention, it'll catch up with you in some way. You can run from it, you can block it and compartmentalize it, and you can try to avoid or do whatever, but the body has a way in many different forms, stress and all type of crisis, that was a term that was used, it will find a way to show up and say, hey, you gonna take care of this? You gonna address this? You gonna work through this? And a lot of times it's the suppression of the emotion that perpetuates the issue, as opposed to perhaps not suppressing it, confronting it, acknowledging it, and making that known. And then the other thing that I'll say is, there have been messages that have been pervasive that would suggest you can't be too emotional. I know that some women that I've talked to, I'm being too emotional. So I would say with that emotional expression, that the balancing that out with the intellect can yield some beneficial results. Emotion can be an important tool, but it's not the only tool. So as a group or individuals are trying to come out of suppressing, and it's also important to I would say be balanced in that as well too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I want to go back to something Paul said. Paul, what did you say that it cannot be, the emotion cannot be what?
To suppress one's emotion, one has to contract with him or herself. And so when you go into the spirit world, the whole spirit world is governed by law. So when we're dealing in the physical manifestation, there are only concepts we're buying into, what we call them programs. So most of us are conditioned all our life because we're buying into programs without understanding the effects. And so when you're dealing with law, you're dealing with laws that govern, like the law of attachment. You're attaching yourself to things, to concepts. When you're dealing in the spirit world, everything's in flow. So when you're conscious of your resourcefulness, you won't suppress your emotion because you know you come here to express yourself at your highest frequency. If you're going to express yourself at your highest frequency, you have no reason to suppress anything. So what we do is we get in the world and we buy into ideas and concepts of physicality, which creates blockage.
Yes, sir.
I think I agree with Paul. However, I think your question was, does culture, I think culture is tantamount to program and also concept. So I would say that I agree with Paul, however, I think that still is an indicator that the question, the answer is yes.
Can I say something? First thing that I heard was earth, then I heard agriculture, then I heard culture. I heard energy from the earth, which everybody partakes of, is the earth nourishes through the agriculture to create the culture. I heard love. I heard the phrase Mother Earth as the genesis of life. I heard love.
Anybody want to expound on that? Anybody have anything to say?
Well, I mean, that agriculture piece, when that was included in your question, I was trying to figure out which way we was trying to.
Because culture comes from agriculture. And the thing is, what I was saying is that, what I was not alluding to, but what I was saying is that the influence that culture has, you know, on people's decision makers, on people's interactions. You know, if you're living in a concrete, more than likely somehow, you know, that's going to be your thought. You know, but if you're in a like in a rural area in a culture, you know, some of your perception, your perspective change. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference. I think Dr. King talked about one time about the rising tide of consciousness, and he gave 5 factors from the slave plantation to rural, to urban, to education, because it broadens your perspective. So it is the influence, what I'm getting to, that culture has on our emotions. And anytime you deal with culture, you have to deal with institutions. Anytime you deal with institutions, you have to deal with principles. And anytime you deal with principles, you have to deal with trends. You know what I'm saying? Because people tend to follow the trends. But when they follow the trends, it's popular. But if the trends that they follow, and there is no principles, then you have to look at the institution. And when you have to look at the institution, you have to look at the culture. And the culture is dynamic. The dynamic. Dr. Sismo says that culture is dynamic. It always changes. You got to take a very serious look at culture or anything when it becomes destructive. That's all. And we have to take a very serious look at our emotions when they become what? Destructive. You know?
Well, and thank you, but I was just going to say, just to close out my, what I was about to say was that, based on where one may be in their emotional stability, can dictate the culture in which they operate, which can produce. So when I think about agriculture, I think about one way that I view it is what you're able to produce, what a person is able to accomplish, what a person is able to bring about, and depending on one person's emotional state or a group of people's emotional state, I believe it could very well dictate the outcomes of what they're able to accomplish, what they're able to withstand, their threshold, what they're able to manifest. And for so long, people are used to operating in a certain way to the point where they develop their own culture of their own way of life. Brother St. Kofa, how he operates, Brother Paul, so on and so forth. So it can be hard to break out of that, especially when it's something that isn't serving us.
When you initially said that about the earth and agriculture and all, one of the first things that came to my mind was all the storms, the hurricanes and stuff, like last week. And how that could make you feel explosive yourself, because it limits you in what you want to do, where you can go, what plans you think you've already made, and how they're just knocked down and stuff, So anyway, that was what I started comparing.
Now, you know what, because I said human and natural disasters. You know what I'm saying? Because it devastates us. You know what I'm saying? It really messes with our emotions. And if we don't deal with that crisis, it will overwhelm us. It will find a way, and we will find ourselves taking something out on the wrong person. There are underlying causes that are being undetected. And it will gradually find a leak and leak itself out. Some people try to compensate with it sexually. Some people try to concentrate it by suffering from losers of grandeur. Some suffering from drugs. Some function from alcohol or drinking or what have you. So we want to get to a point where let us not fool ourselves of the influence that culture has on us, and has on our emotion. The question is that the challenge is that we want to do our best to try to manage them as best as we can. And I'm gonna share something else. Anyone else has something to say before I move on?
I mean, needless to say, the whole mind mentality is at a place. Needless to say, it's at a place. And I don't think, one answer can cure it all, but we are touching on some very interesting, points. It's like an airplane, flying and it crashes. Like we are in the crash. And then the pieces go all over the place. But the most important thing is the little black box that they look for to find the nature of the crash. Well, if you're going to compare that to man or mind, then you would say, let's uncover to discover to recover from the misinformation that we've been shaped, formed, and fashioned into. And then that would say we have to go back to the beginning. In the beginning, where sperm touched the egg. Sperm, and it created this mind, these senses, these abilities to touch, take, feel, like you black and you white and you this and you that. We got to get out of the forest of that. Because there are cultures that are very cultivated. They're very, and then there are cultures that very hated cultures. So how do we maneuver through the raindrops, so to speak, not get wet? Not be affected by the things that we are back to our mature consciousness to say, that's good, that's not good for me, or that is the journey. Look at all the books up there on the wall. That is the journey. Oh, culture. Where you gonna eat? You gonna eat over there? You gonna eat here? Can you be a vegan? Can you, all of this stuff is Food and Drug Administration. It's all connected. You mentioned a lot of stuff when you read that. All the way down to the human. So I'm listening. I'm going on 35 years clean and no drugs, no alcohol. And let me tell you a little secret real quick about that, and I'm going to be out of here. I never thought that it would be a day like that. Woo. Because of my culture. My culture said sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know what I mean? So how can you do that? How can you accept your mother dying and not be like, God took my mother and and I can't make it. I don't understand how we suffer. But when one finds, and there is a reality because it's in the nature of man to find his way to the reality of where this is, oh my God, that is the man is saved. That's salvation.
That's a good point. Anyone else? Want to move on? Good stuff, appreciate it. It says that children learn in picture form. And the picture form becomes a meaning, and the meaning becomes an emotion that they act on. So the question is that the images that is being shown to the children, do that also play a part in distorting their emotions in the society in which we live? And if so, how can we correct that? Images.
I would say, so you mean like television, for instance?
Television is an image, any image. It could be you, how you see you. Because children, you can say a lot of things, you know, children watch your behavior. Because the first sign of reading is observation.
I would say images don't only distort. You know, I think that's one side of the spectrum. I think there's always, if I can use the term, let me just say spectrum versus competing, but you know, you understand. There's everything on the spectrum is not good or bad, and there's always going to be these. I guess when you say distort, I'm not that clear on what you mean by distort, but I would state that images can do a lot of things. Images can heal. Images can kill. Images can do a lot of things. So I just try to answer the question. Yes, they can, but they can also do other things.
Well, okay, go ahead.
In the beginning, I believe, and I'm just saying, not I as the guy whose name I can tell you my name is, that we were made in the image and likeness of something that's long before the English word spirit, long before the Semitic word ba, long before all words. We were made in the image and likeness of something. So is that something that, once again, the separation, and how far you get away from the light switch. The light switch is over here by a beautiful sister lady here, but as long as I'm close to the light switch, I can switch it on and off. The more I get closer to the door, I'm away from who I am. Now you can show me a picture if I'm lost and somebody say, who are you, where you going? They say, this is a trend now. You ain't in. So you gotta be in. You gotta put the teardrop on your eye. And then somebody show you another image like the brother said, and they said, look at this. When I went to Egypt with Dr. Joseph Ben Yankin, and they started showing me what stuff meant, even at that time, not to say that was the beginning of time, it changed my concept of a beginning. Because one of my beginnings was chicken and pork chops at the table with mommy. And then another beginning was like, you know, I'm vegetarian, I eat real cheese. Then another beginning was raw food. I'm just saying, beginnings change and images change and perceptions change. But then we have to remove some of the indoctrinations that will let you maybe never see that as, I would never wear that, I would never say that, because I'm, as deep as the indoctrination is, that's how deep the hold is on you.
I think the brother just knocked it out the ballpark in his response, because I think the biggest challenge in the question, in many of the questions, is that we're so busy trying to justify this physical reality that we've accepted. And we're not that. And so when you lock yourself into a perception that's not real, you spend a lot of energy trying to justify it. In the spirit world, we're all from a spiritual resource. And it's the greater of who we are. But we're not doing anything with it in terms of consciousness. So therefore we leave all this room to the mind to try to figure out this physical reality in which we created, in which we manifest. But there's an unmanifest in all of us that we're not tapping into. And that unmanifest is who we really are. And so if you don't tap into that resource, you operate at a low vibration, a lower frequency, which is the physicality of this reality. And that creates a lot of hardship for people. Because you're beyond that, you're much more than that. So when you don't tap into your real substance, then you're subject to the reality in which you created.
I'm like Willie Mays. I caught that ball before it went out the park. But listen though, let me explain something to you. That's the challenge that we have. Because we say, what do we represent? Oh, you had something? Yeah. Sorry about that. No, you stop. Because you only represent your knowledge base.
That's right.
That's all you represent. It ain't, I say no image, no none of that. You only represent your knowledge, because the word image itself linguistically means I am of age. I am is a contraction word, which means you're about to give birth to something. Nature comes to awaken one's consciousness. When it awakens one's consciousness, then it gets to your intelligence. Sometimes our intelligence can blind us. And when our intelligence and blind us, then it puts us in a position where we become irresponsible. But once the nature of our consciousness gets to our intelligence, then that which we say we are created and say, you are responsible now. So if the spirit that we said that you are saying that, which is energy, I mean, is that a form of escapism? That says that we don't, that is an excuse for us to not to deal with this reality? Is that being perpetuated? Is that being promoted? I just throwing it out there.
Well, it's actually the opposite.
Really?
What you just said, the math is actually the opposite.
What is the math? What is the
The
math?
reality that we create in the physical world is what you're perceiving as the escape. And you're trapping yourself,
That's
you're
right.
enslaving
That's right.
yourself in that
Yes.
reality, because it is only what you manifest. So if you go into your unmanifest and start tapping into your resource, the spirit realm, all of these things that we are manifesting on the physical realm has no power. It's only the power that we give it.
That's right.
So it doesn't have the power until you contract. So let's look at a contract, for example. When we contract in the physical world, either you write something and say, my word is my bond, or you take your perception and you take the idea and you lock it into place through an offer and an acceptance. In the spirit world, when you do that, you create reality, you manifest. So when you manifest something, like we talk about mental resource or mental challenges, when you think about the mental illnesses that are on the planet right now, it goes back to its source. The person has to start with the idea, they have to take the idea and they have to take it to a place of repetition, like everything. Repetition creates greatness, and repetition creates greatness. Greatness is what the force is, but what is the idea, the intent? So we all have the power of intention. What is our intent? If my intent is to live the highest lifestyle I can live in terms of humanity, it wouldn't be in the physical. It would be obtaining that which is spiritual. Now, well, I want to be rich. Well, why do I want to be rich? Why do I want all this material? Because you can have all the material in the world, but what does it profit a man to gain the world but then lose his soul in the process? So everything takes us back to spirit, to source. And the more that you're enriched with source, you're already rich. So the physicality is just an additive.
Well, I think that everything has its place. And so I think spirit definitely is important. But it seems like perhaps you might be discounting perhaps the importance of the physical with that. We live in a reality where, you know, you use the example of getting rich, accomplishing a goal. There's a term called entrepreneurial spirit. And if even this edifice here, this temple, now there's a spiritual component to that, but the physical labor and the toil, getting up, chiseling, and hammering away, and the transactions monetarily, I wouldn't necessarily say that those things are insignificant. I would consider that as a harmonious part of the whole. So I would just say, from my perspective, that the physical is important just like the spiritual, because the physical needs the spirit, but then perhaps the spirit also can impact the physical. And so that's what I'm getting from what I
My question would be then, why is the physical important? What is all the physical importance all about? When you look at the physical relationship of humanity, what is it really about? It is about us getting to become one with love, with understanding, with all the higher attributes of the Spirit. See, everything's going to take you back to source. And so all I'm saying is, it's not that I'm placing this one over that. I'm saying there's a law that says when you have governed yourself by the Spirit, the physical becomes simple, 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 as opposed to hard and arduous and challenging. Is because what we're doing, we're putting perceptions of the physical world as the reality, and it is not. It is not the reality.
What is not?
It is the manifest of the Spirit.
That's right.
That's the difference.
What's the manifest of the Spirit? I'm sorry.
Everything.
Full.
Everything.
You mean the physical?
Everything in the reality of the
Full.
physical world is a manifest of the Spirit.
Full.
And so when you don't understand the relationship and you say, well, I'm going to do whatever I want on the physical plane and then I'll deal with this spiritual stuff later. You can't do that.
Well,
you
you know-
can, but you may become insane. You may become crazy. You may become...
I think the issue is, Paul, Brother Paul,
Yes, sir.
is that, again, I understand you, but again, as we talked about this on the episodes,
Yes, sir.
is that I think you're very difficult to understand. Now, because when you say physical, lots of times you're speaking of physical, even in a mental, psychological, even, I won't even say spiritual in the spiritual sense, which you're not necessarily always saying this is physical or this is physical.
Yeah, I'm talking
You're
about
sometimes saying some of the
perception.
ideas become
That's
physical.
right.
So I think it becomes difficult for people to understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So then it sounds like you're now, kind of like saying all this doesn't matter.
But I've never made that statement.
But I said Sam. So what happens is it's important that that when we articulate ourselves, that people kind of can follow.
Yes, sir.
So that, because the reality is, as Brother Kevin has on this flyer, you may understand what you're saying, but then that leads others to this thing of escapism.
Yes, sir.
You understand? And then we feel like nothing is. So I'm just waiting on my by and by and my white chariot and my my pie in the sky and all these type of things. What the reality is, if we want to believe it or not, none of us are jumping off of bridges and saying let's go quick. Some of us are. Some of us are. But I think it's very important because I think some things are just it sounds good, and what it does is it helps us deal with this reality in a way, in what they'll call a spiritual bypassing way. You heard of the term spiritual bypassing before?
No?
I know some Buddhists use it. So when you spiritually bypass, you act like none of this exists. You act like nothing hurts. It's kind of like even from a more Western perspective, it's like God to take care of it, to throw my hand up and act like the problem ain't there, the bills ain't coming. Look, all of us like sex. I mean, some of us, most of us. All of us like the way this water tastes. Look, even Paul would say that physical is made up of spiritual is made of three things: matter, what is it? Energy, and spirit.
Energy and
Matter, energy. Matter one
Elements.
and elements. Elements, as I shared with Paul, is physical, and matter is damn sure physical. So I was just saying, I understand what he's saying from his, genius way of putting it, but it confuses people. So it makes you believe that none of this is worth it. I agree. I agree once I get your dictionary. And once you operationalize what you're saying, but hell no, I don't agree when I don't have the dictionary. But other than that, that's when we get to the level of escapism.
Yeah.
I don't think Paul is talking about escapism. At least he hasn't shown me that when he defines his stuff. But he rarely defines what he's talking about. So people are just going.
Well,
And
let me say this, because I think what you just did again just knocked it out of the ballpark. Because think about it. We all have been programmed with language.
yes.
We all have chosen words in our vocabulary that we store in belief, in memory.
Yes, sir.
So you have to recall on that when you start thinking and reasoning, right?
Yes.
Well, because I'm a student of spiritual law, I have redefined language according to the accuracy of law.
Okay.
So of course, when I'm speaking, I may be saying things that make a person go, what is he talking about? When I used to do classes, I would tell my students, I would say, let me say this to you all. I am talking to you spiritually. So if you're listening to me physically, you're not going to be able to follow, which I'm kind of what you're going to now. And what I'm saying to them is, you are in a carnal mindset through a program. So in your carnal mind, you're conditioned to transmit information, to process information carnally. I am talking to you from a spiritual understanding, a spiritual foundation with spiritual vibrations and communication. So when the word is going into your ear, you are saying, that don't make any sense because I done went through this here and I experienced that. This ain't adding up. And so that's why I give them that warning. Now, what a part of who I am, my challenge is for all of us, is I'm speaking based on my experience, just as we all are.
Right.
And so when I'm saying things that you're saying, wow, this is confusing me, it is only confusing because we've been confused all our life by the programs. Follow me now, this is what I'm saying. We have language that's inconsistent to law. And so when the language in us is inconsistent to law, we have spent many years pulling up a rock and saying, well, I thought that's what this is not what I thought it was. I went through a whole journey of basically realizing my whole life was a lie. I told my mother, who was an educated woman, spoke 4 languages, was a school teacher. I said, Mom, you trying to teach these kids Spanish and French, they can't even speak English. How you going to teach them Spanish and French? Because what? The fundamentals is the key. So when I deal with spiritual law, I'm dealing with the fundamentals of a universal order that is constant. It never changes. It works the same all the time, every time, on time, and it never misses. So what can I do but present that which I have been exposed to? Now, when a person says, well, that ain't making any sense to me, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. You haven't raised the question so that the information can be presented. So all I'm doing is just expressing myself as we all doing. I'm just sharing. Now, if we want to go to the foundation, like I had, give you a real good example. I had a situation where I was talking at an event at the family, and I was talking about the spirit world, which is something, again, taboo. Nobody talks about the spirit world. And I'm saying, well, we don't believe in that, or that ain't. I said, you want to go there? So when I raise the question, telling the person, let's go into a higher vibration of spirit, so I won't be just talking something foreign. Let's experience it so you can come back and say, wow, that's real. Because I know it's real, but I can't convince somebody it's real because you got your own experience. So all I'm saying is, I can only give you what I have. I can only share what I understand. It is up to all of us to take ourselves to wherever it is we want to go. That's the journey of life.
Can I say something really quick? I want to say that I understood everything that Dr. Paul said, and it just landed. I am a seeker, and I'm going to stand up for just a second, and I'm going to keep the distance. But 16 years ago to the day, I was sitting on my friend Dolores' couch, watching people on the roof when Katrina came through. I was sitting on my friend's couch because a week before, a judge had ordered me out of my home. My husband had killed me, but God brought me back. And I was ordered out of my house, so I had to find a place to sleep. I slept on my friend's couch that night. I woke up that morning seeing these people on the roof in New Orleans. I said, God, what can I do? I had no medical background. I don't have any rescue background, but I know how to pray for people. The next week went to church. My pastor said, we need volunteers to go to Greenville, Mississippi. My cousin, Heather McTeal Hudson, is the mayor of this little city in Mississippi. People are showing up with the clothes on their back. And we need volunteers to take clothes and food and whatever we can to Mississippi. Send me, Lord. A few of us from the church volunteered. I went down to Mississippi with $5 in my pocket. But a heartfelt love. Had no idea where I would sleep, what I would eat, anything. I just wanted to be of service. That is who I am. Anyway, so those 3 weeks that I spent in Mississippi sorting through donations that came from all over the world, I found who I was. I found out who I was. I was not at the house. God was not my source. God, my husband was not my source. God was my source. I slept, ate every day. It was the most wonderful experience. God said, LaRue, bloom where you were planted. And since that time, I have traveled the world, being of service to people. Out of what I thought was the most miserable experience of my life, when the judge ordered me out of the house, I said, well, I didn't do anything. He's the one. But God said, I got something else for you. 16 years to the day, the flood is back in New Orleans. But I have spent this pandemic time saying, Lord, direct me, guide me, slow me down, because I was all over the place. I want to serve people. I'm a seeker. And when my friend Naja told me about this event today, I said, I have to be here. I'm following what I believe in my heart. And God said, come here. There's knowledge for you to take out into the world. Because that's what I'm getting ready to do. Go back out into the world and serve people wherever I'm needed. So I want to thank all of you, because I know your consciousness, your love has brought me here today. And that's how I manifest my life now. People know I have no money. I mean, I'm not a rich person or anything, but again, I've traveled the world just by the consciousness of my mind. And I'm just so excited to be here. So I'm not going to take up any more time, but 16, I'm just so amazed how God has worked in my life to have me here with all of you wonderful people today. The energy and the love, the knowledge that I'm gaining and that I will take out into the world. Thank you. Thank you for your consciousness.
The brother in the gray suit, started something. And then it seemed like the brother in the black kind of wrapped it up. And it was kind of interesting because we needed to get to that part, you know. And then my brother, Dr. Paul, Dr. Paul is like serving this beginning higher consciousness, as I hear it. My brother brought the hay down so the horse can eat it.
Okay.
And then when you look out the window, it is a reality that, you know, something is going on out there. You can't separate spirit from material. And then you can define which material you're talking about. Because if this building was on fire, I'm not going to say, save the building, I'll wait till till it burn and then I'll come out. I think it's most important that because I believe in, spirit, not so much the law per se. I'm going to deal with saving something about, myself or something inside the I that I am. Because the same information that gets the man in the hole can never be the same information that gets the man out of the hole. It's just impossible. The reading is, like even all of the physicians that's up there, the reading is, what have you been doing? I've been doing a lot of salt. I've been doing a lot of sodium. That's probably the same thing. I've been doing a lot of words I can't explain. I've been doing all of that. Well, let's start subtracting. And the more we subtract that, we get back down to the natural, close to the natural who I am. And maybe if you're not traumatized by, I gotta have me some meat. I gotta have me this. Maybe you can find another way, because what we're speaking of today, or what I'm listening for today, is the confirmation of another way, or the way. That's all I'm listening for. I mean, the eloquence of how a man or woman say whatever they say, that's fine. As long as you get me to New York or Kemet or wherever we going. It could be a boat, it could be a plane, let's just get there, you know. And all I'm saying is, back to the place where emotionally, we're not traumatized by every event. Somebody put their emotions to the side to go to 9/11 and work through the emotion. Somebody put something to the side and go out into the street and say Black Lives Matter. Somebody did something without jumping off the bridge saying, I quit. A lot of times it's easy to break down, but it's harder to break it down and build it back up. You know, dealing with the breakdown and building it back up, that's an interesting thing, you know, so all of this matters, you know, the thoughts on things. That chair I'm sitting in, that chair everybody's sitting in, wasn't first the chair, then the mind thought of the chair. It was the mind thinking of the chair, and then here is the chair. The mind thought and was reminded of a particular medicine, whether it be in the forest, or whether it be in the pharmacy, or whether it be in the lab, and reminded you of something, and then here I'm sorry, I hear things all the time, I'm listening, I read, and I'm like, there's a point that we got that would behoove one to get back to. See what I'm saying? I'm not saying we got to, because our minds, definitely alpha male, are wired to challenge. We ain't got to do this, we ain't got, no. I am saying it would behoove one to get foot back on base. Then we have to define what base is. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Mama Donna.
Sisters over here.
Yeah, I'm still and wondering, you know, whatever you want to call it. Like Minister Starr was saying, it's hard to understand what Brother Paul is saying or whatever. Children start off preschool, kindergarten, and go through at least, you know, like 12 years, whatever. And they hear all this other side. They got science, they got math, they got reading, writing. What about the types of things that Brother Paul is talking about? And it started at the level of children, so that when they get, you know, older, they're already ready to, able to understand what you're talking about, instead of waiting until you go to a conference or a panel discussion somewhere and somebody is saying, well, you know, you're not a real person, you're not this, you're not that, you're just a bunch of protons, a bunch of atoms floating around, you know, et cetera, et cetera. What if children have that class as well in school, along with the science and the math? Then when they get older, they've lived that life where they've had those thoughts in their mind and they're able to understand it and analyze it and accept it or whatever.
Is that directed?
Huh?
Is that directed?
Whoever.
So I think I had something to say now, and then I'll kind of blend it together. One thing I think, all right, so I kind of think I catch what Brother Paul says, right? He just says it in a different way, and I understand that is his right. You know, he can do it. You know, however, I think that maybe his book, maybe that helps. You know, maybe that helps. You know, get the book, right?
What's the name of
So I'll read it. I'll say it for real, Brother Paul, because he can't say it. He's a spiritual man. Stop making this shit so hard. So,
Discovering a purpose.
and I'm saying it to Paul, stop making this shit so hard. You understand what I'm saying? So when I'm saying to Paul, again, stop making this shit so hard. So I do, after I go and I wrestle with Paul, I think we tend to come to a consensus. You know, but he just says, you know, so what I'm saying is, so I think what Paul says is deep that people overlook, is that, and you gave a good example, but I think Paul's examples go even, I'm not saying it doesn't, but they go out there to a level where even we have to be careful of the things that we give value to, even if that's traveling, even if that's helping, and even if that's doing service and things, because some of us get, we can concretize those things and put value to those things, and if we can or cannot do those things, then they can also be just as devastating than a house. So it's like we all get out, everything we do, we get something out of it. There's some of us, like, I'm not saying this about you, I'm just saying, we all, is a reality check for us all. Some of us, we go out, we help, I'm talking about myself. You know, we go out and help, we do a lot of things for people, we do a lot of things for community, and we're not realizing what we get out of this. And then it is a beautiful thing to realize I don't need a damn house, you know, and I can still survive. It's not about how everybody's looking at me if I lost it, because that's like, that's weight off of you, right? Like, damn, I wish I would have let that thing go a long time ago. But Paul is also talking about things on a cycle. Say it again.
Were you there?
I mean, I understand. But I will also say, but I want to be clear that you can have things. Because most of the world is not going to be without walls, okay? Most of the world is not going to be without walls. However, it's not to put too much value into those walls, because if this place burned down, we're going to start over somewhere else. Because some of us can get stuck, the energy can get stuck, right? And then we just fold. You understand? So the thing is, I understand Paul, but I think the deeper thing Paul is saying, that anything, even the service and even the thoughts and even the value we have on what's pretty and what we have the value on what's these things that are like not concrete, but they're more psychological constructs, they are material, which I agree. But I think that to understand that, because that is, I would suggest, a source of mental illness. Because most of what we think, as Brother St. Cole talks about, is the narrative that we have in our minds. The things that we talk about, the way that we put it. However, I think maybe what we do, we all work together and we kind of help operationalize with some of what Paul says, but also get the book and stop making the shit so hard, you know, and it makes sense.
Yes, I think much of it comes from looking at, you know, where people have, what they went through, what they have had to endure, what they've had to deal with, which perhaps when they do acquire certain things, there's a reason perhaps why now that they've got this opportunity, this business, this status, this title, why they now have to pump themselves up and exemplify what we call this illusion of grandeur. And I gotta feel like I'm better than. Dr. Jordan Brew, I think it's up there, post-legislation, speaks about vacancy and how a lot of times we overcompensate and put so much into these, you know, the physical or different things because we're trying to make up for a void that is there. So, so you know, if I go to the doctor, the first thing that they're going to do before we move forward with the treatment and the healing, they're going to say, what runs in my family? What's on my daddy's side? What's on my mother's side? What are my habits and tendencies?
Right.
So as we explore how we move in these spaces and how we put stock and value into a lot of things, looking back at our personal history can really help us understand how we got to that point. But it could be scary. It could be frightening. You know, it could even cause anxiety because some of the things that we might need to re-examine can be uncomfortable.
Let me just say one thing. 16 years ago, I probably wouldn't have understood many things that you had said today, Dr. Paul. I really wouldn't.
It's a good
And
point.
I've evolved.
And your experiences has
My
gotten you see,
experience,
and it's
yes.
because you've allowed yourself to flow.
I've allowed myself to flow.
And that's why I say the difference between the carnal mind and the spirit mind. When you open your mind up to flow, energy flows, idea flows, electricity flows. That's your power base, that's your universe, that's who you are,
That's who I am.
consciousness. So when we put these constructs on that, these physical barriers on that, these contracts with the physical world, with the carnal reality, you're enslaving yourself. And then therefore, so these things look differently now when you look at them. But when you look through the pure spirit, you see flow. You see people operating in their energy, being who they are. Everybody has the same opportunity, 24 hours, 7 days a week to contract. In the spirit world and the carnal world. And we're just choosing, that's all. Simple.
I'm so much happier now. That's what I want to say. I laugh so much more
Well,
now.
happiness is the joy that you feel when you are in pursuit of your potential.
Hallelujah.
You know, no one cannot see electricity, don't mean that it don't exist.
That's right.
But energy flows through a physical conduit in order for, because we are transmitters of energy. And mental labor precedes physical labor. Anything that remains in its natural form and natural state is spiritual, natural, because if you take something out of its natural environment, then you replant it somewhere, it may lose some of its nutrients. The brother mentioned the word pharmacy. That comes from the word farm. It goes back to agriculture again. Then we deal with the source of all conflict is attachment. And when we deal with water, the sign, the symbolism of water, if you drop a ripple, a rock in water, it will have a ripple effect. That's the sensitivity. That's communication. That's a broadcasting system. So we have to understand all these things as well and how they play an impact on our emotions. But there are rules of engagement. It says do not take anything personal. It's just what someone says is just merely a projection of their reality. You know what I'm saying? So because of the experiences that each and every one of us have a difference, it's a projection of his or her reality. The challenge is, how do we compensate for the loss or any loss? That's the question. How do we compensate for the loss of any loss? Is it by means of a word I always learn to keep throwing out is we try to, escape because the experience that we had may be due to some mental dejection or some physical rejection, and we try to compensate for that, and it emotionally impacts us. So we try to compensate. Well, man, I don't want to deal with this reality, if I may use that word. So maybe you want to go into the spirit to come out and help you be able to deal with the reality. I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm cool with that. But at the same time, we're still trying to compensate for what has been done to us, the hurt, the harm, the injury. So it is the trauma that has been done. And we don't want to re-traumatize, but yet we don't want to become victim of, as Brother Duke would say, called a deficit perspective, where we take this inferior position, whereas that we don't want to, deal with this reality, and if that's not dealing with reality, we say we go in the spirit. But now we're compensating for it because it makes us feel good now. It makes us feel better. So it's just a feeling now. It's a feeling. When we come to the causes and consequences of emotional suppression due to our life experiences. And I already realized that anything that takes form will always be remembered. There is a sister that deals with the still babies, and some people have a hard time of dealing with that. And another lady came to her and said, "Well, your child is all right. He's in the hands of God." She said, "Oh no, I want my child to be in my arms, my arms." See what I'm saying? That's another form of escapism. You know what I'm saying? So she had to make her put her on point, because we have become so irresponsible with the use of our faculties. You know what I'm saying? Under a programming system, so we become so dependent on someone. I'm not saying someone that's telling us what to do, but in this approach and living on these life experiences, someone says, living life on life terms. So we have to be aware of the influence as it pertains to even automatic distorted thoughts. For example, what if is an automatic distorted thought? What if you keep asking a series of questions about what if something happens if you fail, and you fail to be satisfied with any answers that is given to you? That's an automatic distorted thought. And when you deal with that, Francis Fanon talks about cognitive dissonance. The facts can be right in your face, but you refuse to deal with reality because you're still holding on to those life experiences. And all you're really doing, undetectedly re-traumatizing yourself. What should I say, take on that?
There was this experiment they did some time ago, and they made a video of people referencing, some particular point, and they showed that video to a group of people, and they asked them to count how many times people made a reference to that, whatever point it was. And the people counted very carefully, these references, and then when it was all over with, they asked them, okay, how many people saw the bear? And almost no one knew what they were even talking about. And they went back and they showed them the video, and for it was 9 full seconds, there was a guy in a bear costume, like right up at the camera. No one was looking for that. Everyone was looking for this, the reference they were asked to look for. In spite of the fact that it's completely, a very strange event that you would never miss in normal circumstances, but they were kind of directed elsewhere, although they were looking at the screen.
Wow.
They had a lot of those studies, like where bears, people actually run across football fields and do all types of things and miss it. Yeah. Brother Kevin, could you restate that question?
Yeah, I was saying that when we're not dealing with this reality of escapism undetected, I say we are really re-traumatizing ourselves.
Can I say this? I don't know if that, I'm going to try to work it in there.
Yeah.
So, all right, you said something else along when you were going across, brother questions, the greatest questions on planet Earth from Brother Kevin. I mean, nobody can do it like Brother Kevin, You gotta have a master, you gotta have like a Paul knowledge or something. You understand? Y'all see, I see why y'all hang. Hey, I hang with them too, Paul, so I guess But look, so I think you said the word attachment.
Attachment.
And this goes back, I kind of want to be clear that attachment and what is physical. Like I think sometimes what we do when we don't have things, when we feel like we don't have what is physical. When we don't have what is physical, many times what we do, we find ways to cope with not having. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But that ain't everybody else's reality. Some people want to have some this. S-H-I-T-T, right? Some people want to have some. There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make sure, I think we have to articulate, there's nothing wrong with having material.
Not at all.
I mean, it could be. See, that if you listen to Paul, it sounded the other way. But I see, got him. So look, not to you. But the first thing you brought up was something physical. The first thing you brought up was physical. But Paul is going deeper than physical. I mean, what we call physical. What y'all call physical might be something different. So the less attachment you have, the more ability you have to build in the physical realm.
That's right.
So I just want to make that clear. Because those of us who are attached also struggle with building because we're holding on so tight to what we believe we have. So we don't take risks because we think we lose it. But when we're not as attached, we can take those risks because, God damn it, what am I going to lose? I don't have nothing in the first place. When you do have something on a certain level, but in a spiritual realm or what have you want to call it, see, I don't like to get caught up with words and titles and labels. What some people might call spiritual, I might just say this. You see, but understand. So the thing is, if we are less attached, we take more what people will call risk. And even if we're the less attached we are, it ain't even called a risk. It's called an attempt. It's called something else. Because a lot of us are holding on so dear and tight, we can't go and travel the world. We can't build business. We can't take risks to even buy a house. Some of us are so attached to the money in our pocket even. It's not even just whatever it is, the credit score. We can be, see, the Paul, see, that's the Paul's attachment. Even Paul's physical. The credit score is physical. Even though you can't see it or touch it. Maybe you can look up Credit Karma or something. But nonetheless, it's something that was created. And some of us get blocked by that. You see, I'm reading Paul's book. So blockages, we're blocked by the perception that my credit score is going to go down, so I don't want to do it. So now the whole purpose of a credit score is no longer beneficial. Because you build your credit score up to go and purchase a thing or have purchasing power, but you know it's going to drop, but you don't want it to drop because you're afraid. So this whole idea of fear is really fear. It's really fear that I'm losing something. It's fear that I'm going to be in a deficit. It's fear that I'm not going to survive. We live in a threat society. So again, I just want to say, the less attached we are to things, the more we can build on what we call physically, which is also what we call the manifestation of what is spiritual. I just want us not to get caught up and twisted up, because a lot of us in this society, especially black people, we can get caught up. We can get caught the idea, and I know black is a label as well, but see, that label helps us explain some things, but it has also been created to destroy some things. So even our mentality and our concept of ourselves and all these type of things. So everything you can do, you can hurt, harm, you can help and heal. So but what I'm saying is, the reason why I'm careful how I articulate to us is that because we all, black people, they say they're the most spiritual people. In research says it.
Wow.
But what I'm saying is, what is that? But I'm not even talking about religion. I'm not getting into that debate. I'm not getting into religion or whose form of spirituality, because everybody has their box. Even if you say you don't have one, that's your box. You see what I'm saying? So let me just sum this up. When I hear us talk in ways that are not clear, I see it perpetuates it can perpetuate our overly, let me say, what's the term, Kevin? It can make us spiritually bypass. And spiritually bypassing is when it's a coping mechanism to deal with the hard reality. It's a way of dissociating from reality. And I want to say there is a reality. This table is here. I'm sorry. We can get so high and act like this table don't exist, but this table does exist. And it came from something. And even putting together was energy and matter and all that other fancy stuff. So, but we have to be careful, because we'll just aid in the spiritual bypassing that we already do if we're not careful. Because some people would think that, oh, that brother's not spiritual because he does this, or that sister's not spiritual because he does that, and all these type of things, and that's not true. Somebody can have a whole lot of physical, a whole lot of riches, quote unquote. If that's what you value, you call that riches. That's just a term. I can have a whole lot of gold and still be a very spiritual person, if we use that term. Yeah.
Well, that was super powerful too, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because something about the way I'm wired, it can hit everybody. I hear you, I hear the brother, I heard the story the man said, and because I've been practicing where to properly place things. Like the me I see is the me I'll be. My niece and I was talking the other day, and she was talking about they got to get it like we got it. But who is we that got it? Who is the we that don't understand when Paul speaks? Who is the we that says that's too deep? Who are the we? Then we gotta look back, like what the brother said. Your background, was you taking too much salt, too much this, too much that, not exposed to this or exposed to that. I played with an artist that was a multimillionaire. And my multimillionaire, not exactly right now in the bank, But one thing I saw was pictures, images. I was in the place. I saw that there is a reality to get that. Some people can't fathom getting a particular thing, but okay, so we get a particular thing. The greatest thing about getting a particular thing is to still be a humble man that don't make the thing you. Although there are your thoughts and there are your ideas and there are your whatever to spend that kind of money to get that. So I'm gonna reveal something. I don't know. I mean, I guess everybody has been true, but I'm gonna be the one that like somewhat take my pants down, not really. Because though we come from a small house, you know, we had tiny windows, but we could still see a dream. So yes. There are some people in the family that went up in dwellings, that went up in houses. And I must say, to the brothers that was talking about obtaining, yeah, I was chasing them. Yeah, I was chasing them. I was chasing them part of for me, part of the picture that I think I can be, part of what I believe that I can have, because number one, I got an idea in my head. I don't care what kind of house you get, it ain't nothing but an investment. And I proved that to myself by just selling the house. The house went on sale Thursday, the house sold Saturday. The equity that was in the house was very interesting. Then people tell me it's gonna be hard to buy. Hey, guess what? Bought a house, I settled on the 23rd, they settled on the 15th. It was just interesting how knowing what to hear, how to hear, what to read, how to read it, how to read into it, how to it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I don't care, you can go get a PhD and turn around backwards. It's still a lot of work. I'm telling you, so to be with a group of people that can help us synthesize and they can help us to sort of like, and I'm gonna use a word, it must be a taboo word, see the reality. Where the lady was cooking this ham, I'm gonna say ham, that's what it was, and she would chop the end of it off.
Oh, yeah.
And then he said, why do you do that, Mom? She said, because my mom did it. So she asked her mom. She said, because my grandmother did it. She asked her grandmother said, the pan was too small. It had nothing to do with the meat, it had nothing to do with the style, it had nothing to do with nothing. So how much of that is the reality of what we thinking or what I'm thinking? I don't like to say we all the way because I don't want to bring nobody or push nobody no faster or no. I'm very clear that that's why I said it would behoove one, not we as black, not shake on the dope said, who we call the black man today. That is the culture that we call ourselves the black man. Yeah, we are the black man. We are the people that some people can love or hate or whatever. I understand that. But how do I properly live inside of that theory and philosophy? It's real. I don't want to say the work. Well, from the cradle to the grave we learn. I will be. It's safe to say that. It's safe to say from the cradle to the grave we learn. But it is so much work. It is so, I've seen people start off with nothing, wind up with all the degrees that you say, y'all have and that you're doing, and they live good lives. Some of us are still trying to find our way.
I say, ask the universe to make it easy. It doesn't have to be hard. That's what I say.
If I even use that concept coming from the misunderstanding for some of the Bible, what universe, what, like the brother say here, I use him to understand the profundity of Paul. Now I use that because I'm saying, okay, I can go out and say, the universe did this for me or the universe said that. But what is that? You done listen to grandma for all your life saying, get on your knees and pray to this, and even got a picture up on the wall. Now I'm going to go outside or even stay in here and say, universe, lead and guide me. That can really work. That can really be true because I believe there's something inside of me that if I tell myself, I'm going to smack that chump, I'm going to go head toward you to smack you. Or something inside of me say, don't hit him, have you read his record? It's the same something that I'm listening to, or if it's something to say, you know what, I'm going to get up and exercise this morning. Don't think you ain't having a conversation with something greater than you. We're having it's a conversation greater than me that I'm listening to because it's the same information that got me in the hole won't be the same information to get me out of the hole. I can't continue to not manage my feelings, my emotions, my diet, my everything, you know. Just like coming through a relationship, you can't tell me, like, well, for me, I came through a relationship when I was about 29, I was ready to jump off the bridge. And then after about 2 years later, I called my son and said, what was your mother's middle name? I couldn't remember her middle name. Because there was a shift in consciousness, understanding, moving values around, because I gave her all my power. And after a minute, I realized, hey, I'm still the same handsome guy that she wanted. Somebody else gonna want me. But when I think my whole world ended the moment you left me, David Ruffin and them, my world is empty without you, baby. And all these great Motown songs that made us sing these songs and dance in the streets. I'm sensitive. I'm an impressionable being. Maybe not you. I am an impressionable being, and I have to really be careful of that. Thank you all.
So, one of the bullet points I see on the sheet is denial. And well, whatever walk of life we have, whatever our profession, our day-to-day endeavors are, wherever we frequent or go, that's what we do. Life is sometimes come real fast. You'll find ourselves overwhelmed, you know, leaving edge. Hopefully nothing detrimental happens, but you never know what type of situation one can find himself in.
Absolutely.
And so being overwhelmed, I would suggest that many would cling to that source of strength to help them through.
Right, absolutely.
Whatever it could be a chant, or it could be some higher being, higher power. It could be I'm doing this for those that have gone before me, ancestors, whatever it is. Past few weeks, I've been spending a lot of time at a place that I don't want to be, or that I didn't really intend on being, was a hospital. A couple individuals in here know my stint. My father was in a hospital for what seemed to be a pretty common procedure. He ended up having to be rushed out to the hospital 4 times afterwards. And so, best believe, I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm digging deep, trying to find all the chants and all those things. But I couldn't sit there and deny that IV, that physical tube that was tied to the machine, then that clear fluid was going into my father's arm. I couldn't deny that he was given a pill, a medication to help him through. Dad going through couldn't deny that them bills came coming in the mail based on his inpatient stay. And so I had to sit back and really reflect on that. And so, once again, I would suggest, this is my perspective, whatever it is that we find ourselves having to gravitate towards to help us through in the midst of a challenging hardship or a challenging time, so be it. But I think the issues and the problems can occur when then Brother St. Colfa's way gotta be Brother Paul's way, gotta be Brother Donnie's way, gotta be Minister Asar's way, and it's gotta be Brother Kevin's way. Because their situation and reality might be totally different from mine. If it works, I'm cool. But to impose and say that my way has to work, my way or no way, I think that things are a little bit too complex and nuanced in that. And so, as we do what we have to do to push through the things that come our way, if it's something that is serving us, and it's something that is bringing about healthy results, that's cool. But as things evolve, as time goes on, I think it's healthy to step back from time to time and reflect and analyze it and question. And I say question even delicately because sometimes in the brain, we can't stop.
You ruin it, we can't turn it off. But to just slow down just enough to ponder, is this the best, most effective way for me to go about addressing what's going on? And I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy.
Sir, I want to thank you. All of you guys is very touching to me, you know, because seriously, because it's healing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It really is.
very therapeutic.
Yeah, very much so. And thank the Wellness Center for allowing us to see if you think, Sister Don.
Hold on.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. You know, I say this too, that we try to find ourselves in a world outside of ourselves. That's a challenge. And the best investment that one can make is in his or her own very soul, his or her own self. And I'm going to deal with these terms. They're called automatic distorted thoughts. And then we're going to get into warning signs of emotional stress. And then we're going to start getting into some of the causal consequences. As further get into causal consequences of emotional suppression, the 10 that we have on the slide. Catastrophizing, we want to talk about it. It says you believe what has happened or will happen will be so awful and unbearable that you won't be able to stand it. It would be terrible if I failed. Catastrophizing. Do we do some catastrophizing? You want to talk about that? Anybody want to elaborate on that?
Say that word again?
Catastrophizing. It's an automatic distorted thought.
Catastrophe.
Yeah.
Can you spell it?
So we,
It's like catastrophe, but a verb.
Okay.
Right? Is that what that was?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It says that you believe, or we believe, what has happened, or what has even happened to us, or even will happen. You know what I'm saying? We don't know. Will be so awful and unbearable that you and I won't be able to stand it. It would be terrible if I failed.
See, basically, that's why we're here. We're here because we're fueling. I like to say that one of the things that helps me and has helped me is that 10,000 can fall to the left, and I am quoting from that place. And 10,000 can fall to the right, but none will come near thy dwelling. Once I get into the place where I realize that things happen and things will happen and things has happened, I learned it. I learned it from the deepest experience, from the death of my mother, the death of my father, the death of my brother, divorces, bankruptcies, good friend dying. I mean, those images, let's go back to that, and knowing how to use them, placed me in a place that made me value each day. And not only value each day, evaluate each day in the ways that I think. So if I'm going to New York, the only thing that would make me start tripping if I only got a quarter tank of gas. And I'm thinking, man, what's going to happen? I can be on this highway. I know a quarter tank of gas got to run out. But if I knew I have a full tank of gas or somebody to call or something to do, resources or something, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm feeling pretty, because I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. I'm just speaking out of something you said about living in your reality and the way I'm going to say place things. Somewhere in there, I'm going to find a place to place that. So I look at that, and I'm not going to project the craziness. It's not even happened yet. It hasn't even happened yet. I mean, we are creators, and we are silently creating each moment. It would have to be the trauma that we're talking about here to say, oh man, if I go outside, and it just be my luck, man, that I'm going to get hit by a car, and if that happens, then I won't be able to go to work. I mean, I don't occupy my positive projections and my mindset, but I am saying, if I were to look at 10 different people in the world, and I'm the 8th one, people think and sometimes look and hope and dream that all kind of things can happen. In our reality, all kind of things will happen. It's then where we're going to go when they do happen. Because once you live for a while, you see that things has happened. And that's just where, I don't know, that's where life has been for me. I can't say it's where life is, that's where life been for me. You know, I'll say this and I'll stop. A lot of times when I hear a tick, I used to hear a tick in the car or whatever, and I just want to take the car back to the shop, or I just want to buy a new car. But today, when I hear, well, let me say why. Because I know I don't have the money to get it fixed. I know, man, the insurance gonna go up, so I don't go that far into it like that. Maybe I'm a senior and seniors see farther. I just don't go there like that. If I hear a tick or something, if the people at the mechanic shop can't fix it, and we're gonna take it to another shop and they can't fix it, then we're gonna get another car. A kid hit me the other day, I'm driving and the man hit me in the side of my car, he crying. Oh, I just had an accident last week. Oh my God, I ain't gonna be able to. He did just what you said. He went way out there. And I said to the kid, he was born in 1999. I said, look, son, don't worry about it, man. We're gonna work it out. This is gonna be all right. It's gonna all work out. It's gonna be a good experience. And it was a good experience. He told the people it was his fault. Everything worked out. I'm sure he's alive and I'm alive. I'm just saying.
That's
Perception, man. How we gonna look at this? Where to place this? Where you gonna place that?
Well, so you was helping him to process what was going on so that he won't be, you know, because sometimes we can create an imaginary hurt that's not there.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? That's key. There is anyone else want to talk? Chime in?
I think that's why a lot of people now are talking about living in the present and the now. These young words, you can't do nothing about what's already done, and you don't know that it's gonna happen tomorrow, so you keep yourself there in the present, in the now.
That anticipation of the worst possible outcome, from my experience, you know, a lot of times it's not what I'm projecting it to be. You know, I just saying to y'all about my father, you know, he's an hospital, what if they gotta operate on me, what they gotta do this, and this don't happen, he all into next month. I'm like, hold up. Sip your water, order your lunch, and take it one day at a time. And it's not easy, you know, and the other thing is just being honest and real where you at with this stuff, you know. I was sitting here trying to tell him to chill. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had to leave the room a couple of times. So, you know, we talk about, you know, we have these conversations about living in reality and acknowledging, you know, just being honest and where you fall with all of this. These be some very challenging lessons to grasp. And a lot of times, what we anticipate, you know, the worst, a lot of times it don't really pan out like that. And there are options and things that you have to do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you wanted to buy something?
You're coming, you just go ahead.
Say that, the point that I'm at in my life, I just turned 71 years old in June. And so I'm at a, you know, at the end of my life. And, but I don't judge people. I live by what my mom and dad told me, live by the golden rule, treat people the way that you want to be treated. And, but it's a journey, that's what I was gonna say. This is a journey, and this life is a journey that we know is gonna end in physical death, but we know it's another awakening spiritually. I believe as a Christian that I have eternal life, you know, through Jesus Christ, my Savior. So I look at everybody that I meet. When I meet people, I just smile. That's kind of like what I do, and just, you know, just emote love. You know, just emote love, and people smile back, and we go about our lives. So I don't judge people. I love people. I meet people where they are because that's where they are. I can't change anybody. I can only live the way that I think that God would want me to live. That the God in me will shine onto the world. And that's it. And that's what I say to people. Say, LaRue, why are you so happy? I'm so happy because I have been given the gift of life. And I love you and I love everybody. What's not to be sad about it? I mean, what's to be sad about it? So that's it. And I don't think I'm like a pie in the sky kind of person, that I'm going to be, there's some God in the sky. And I don't believe in any of that. But everybody on the face of the earth is on a journey. And let it be. Just let it be, live life. Hallelujah.
I would say that we, as I guess a human component or in these physical bodies, because we live in the physical world, we deal with perception, self-perception. And so I think that what that does, it puts us in a environment of subject to what the physical world presents. Now, where this all takes me to in this dialogue is, Sister started over there when she spoke to being in the now, present. And so scholars say, the scientists say, that most people spend about 5 minutes a day in the present. And the other 23 hours, 55 minutes a day, they're living through their subconscious. So what does that really say to us? What does that really tell us? What have you put in your subconscious mind? If 23 hours and 55 minutes each day, you're operating out of your subconscious mind, think about what you stored in your subconscious mind all your life. Because that's what's working. So the power of consciousness is when you're in the present is where all your power is. All your power is when you're in the now. So when you go into the subconscious, you're operating out of a program, basically. And the program is based on what you have put in that memory, that storage closet, that's now playing back. How many of us have gotten in our car and driven to a location, and then you got there and you was either engaged in a conversation or deep thinking, and you were like, how did I get here? I wasn't even present. Because your subconscious mind stopped at every stop sign, every light, made the left, the right turn you needed, and you were on autopilot. You made it to the destination because that's how powerful the subconscious mind is. Now, when we're in the consciousness, we're in the now, we have the ability to evolve, to raise our frequency, lower our frequency. When we're in the subconscious mind, we're just operating. We're just, like most people, just busy, just being busy, just dealing with daily activity. So when we go back to that storage closet and we begin to examine everything that we recorded, everything that we have created, manifested, and stored in that closet, that becomes, as the scripture says, what a man thinketh, so is he. So if you put terrifying things in there, catastrophic things in there, the things that has created all of the what perceives as negative, then those things are going to continue to manifest and play out. If you basically erase all those programs and begin to reprogram yourself with heaven here on earth, and you create heaven around you, because I'll be in the worst communities, but my mind is in heaven, so it doesn't matter where I'm at. And I could be in Vietnam, I could be in Southeast DC, where people shooting and killing each other. It doesn't matter, it's because I'm not present. I've created my reality through using the power of consciousness. So I'm in the present, and so therefore, when people live in the past, they have created judgment. And so therefore, the perception of that reality is manifesting through their subconscious mind. And so, some of the things that I want to address with Brother said earlier, I mean, I don't know we have enough time to get into that because there are so many different frequencies we could speak on. And for me, it's just really about simplicity. and that's what I like to do. Now, all in defense of Brother Kevin, myself, and this brother back here, I think he's probably the same thing. I'm also a numerologist, which is dealing with energy vibrations. So my reason for being is an 11, why I came to planet Earth. And Brother Kevin operates at 11 and 22. So that's why it appears the challenge is that our information is, once you start processing information at 11 and 22, we kind of speak at a frequency that most people have to tune into. Because if you don't tune into that frequency, it will go right over your head. Because it's like, this is what we've come for. But just like Sister said, we all have come here with purpose, for reasons. And so when you know that reason, when you know that purpose in which you've come, it kind of flows out of you. It's not work anymore. You're just being yourself. So I tell people all the time, you can drop me out of parachute anywhere on planet Earth. It don't matter. I can go 8 hours talking spirituality, because that's what I've come to do. And I'm like, y'all tired? Man, I'm just catching my breath, and let's get going. And so everybody has that gift in them, based on who they are, whatever that field is that you operate out of. The same thing happens. And so for me, it's just really about us living in the now, everybody spiritually committing or physically committing to raise your vibration so that you can become in love with yourself.
That's right.
Because the more you grow to love yourself, the more you just want to share that love with others. That's all the universe is. Whatever you take in, it becomes it that you now want to share it with the next person. It's because it's who you are. You've embodied it. And so it's nothing greater, but I would say that us embodying that which we've come to do.
Hallelujah. Yeah. Feels good. It just feels good, right?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on Paul and Rashid. This is my brother, Ra.
I should have known.
That he was, I thought it's James Carter, K. Carter is with K. Yeah, you're 11.
Pull your mask down.
Yeah,
All the way
he's
down.
11.
Yeah, pull it all the way down.
I want to piggyback on my testimony. Okay. 44 years. I don't call clean because Spirit said he was never dirty. 44 years came out of that experience. And the only hell I know is that experience of being poor, sick, poverty. That's hell right there for me. And I worked myself out of that, but I start seeking higher spirituality. I started seeking Buddhism. I went with gurus. I studied with them because I wanted to study a higher vibration than what I have known. I wanted to break that cycle of that drug addiction and not keep going back and relapsing. People keep going to the room, they relapsing. They got 20 years, 15 years, 30 years. Some ministers, they relapsing. I was a seeker. I was going to seek the highest level of consciousness. Why was I continue on this merry-go-round?
You reject any evidence or arguments that might contradict your negative thoughts. For example, if you have the thought, I am unlovable, you reject as irrelevant any evidence that people like you. Consequently, your thought cannot be refuted. That's not the real issue. There are deeper problems. There are other factors. That's when we think that our thoughts cannot be refuted. You know what I'm saying? That's a challenge. That's a challenge. But needs to say, another one, automatic distorted thought is, and then we're going to proceed on, it's called emotional reasoning. When you let your feelings guide your interpretation of reality. I feel depressed, therefore my marriage is not working out. Here's some warning signs of emotional distress, emotional or sleeping, emotional sleeping too much or too little, pulling away from people and things, having low energy, having unexplained aches and pains such as constant stomach pains and headaches, excessive smoking, these are warning signs of distress, excessive smoking, drinking, or using drugs, including prescription medicine, worrying a lot, and also lying a lot, other times, most of the time, and feeling guilty, but not sure why. You know, thinking or hurting or killing yourself or someone else, having difficulty to adjust home, work, or life itself, as pertains to living life or life term. We're at the third stage or phase of this discussion here, and the goal is towards psychological stability. Psychological stability. Behaviors can best be understood, or I always say the best way to diagnose a person is based upon the condition of the circumstances which they came out of. Even though there is a diagnosis that has been made of the person, it still does not define who that person is. You don't identify that person as such. But that's not who he is. Well, Chico Diop said this here. He said that when one's intellectual, when the ecology of the environment is thrown off, one's intellectual aptitude for learning becomes difficult. So we're dealing with environment because we have to merge the logic with the emotion. We can be too logical with less emotion. We can be too emotional and less logical. We must find a balance. Still talk about psychological stability in the environment, in the role that environment plays. Another brother, Dr. Du Bois, said this. Dr. Du Bois says he didn't go to Harvard because they had better teachers. He said he went to Harvard because the environment was conducive for learning. That's what he said. So we talk about the suppression of emotion suppression and consequences. We're dealing with environment, and then you can deal with the board versus Brown and Board of Education, because other schools had adequate tools, and black people, if I may use that word, they didn't have the adequate tools to work with, so and so forth and so on. Yeah, so it is the environment. So, and there is a quote that I've learned to know: that which occupies the mind conditions the mind. That's just the nature of the mind. Now, I'm gonna say this. We are created to know the difference between harm and help. We realize this thing is hurting me or harming me. And not become an enabler to others. That becomes an addiction. What I mean an addiction is that, you think you're helping someone when you wind up hurting someone. So we also have to deal with self-inflicting wounds. Like Brother Bill talking about a deficit perspective, you know what I'm saying? We have a perspective about a certain group of people, but that's a perspective that has been passed down to us. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. You see what I'm saying? So, how to deal with this pain and this continuing of hurting and harming ourselves. And we become so numb that it becomes undetected. Become this pain, this hurt, this self-inflicted wound, you know what I'm saying? Yes. So the thing that should help us to overcome this is basic. It's common sense. Common sense. What's your take on that? That what should help us to overcome this pain, this self-inflicted wound, this perspective that we may have of others that is not so. You know what I'm saying?
See, that's the epitome of a discombobulated mind or man. Because once you think somebody is hurting you, but they're helping, you can't tell the difference between a person that's helping you, you think they're hurting you, or you think what's hurting you is helping you. That's the epitome of sick, self-inflicted nonsense. The earlier thing that you said was the narcissism of a man thinking that his thought can't be disputed. I mean, it's not about disputing a thought as opposed to where is the unison in a thought. Well, basically one may think, we're not in harmony. Well, no, my friend and I may not be in harmony, but we are in harmony because harmony is your word, your note, and my note is, and those two notes together are harmony. We're not in unison. We're not saying the same thing. And most of the time, we are in harmony because I allow, and it makes sense, for your note to be sung, my note to be sung. That's where the Temptations got their thing from. A lot of times they were singing harmony, different notes. Now, for one to be able to appreciate different notes, that's the greater mind. If you was to ask me, like the brother said, well, say your name again, it's so beautiful.
Me?
Yeah,
Brother Assad, Dennis Assad.
I thought they were saying something else.
They say Dennis, they say Assad, they say Minister Assad.
Okay. No, because I wanted to piggyback on just that super valid point that you made about everybody has a point, everybody has a perspective. You could test it tonight when you look up into the sky. If you got the doggone eye, you can see it now. You look up into the sky, there's more than one star. So for one to feel like, I mean, you can speak to the universe, as the sister said, but I can't say, I am the universe. I am truly a part of the universe that's making the unity of the verse. No controversy in that. It's just, we're all a part of it. And that's where the biggest confusion is right now. You can't come over on my side of the street. I can't come on your side of the street. I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're this, and all deep down in all of that stuff, everybody has this narcissistic way of my way is right. The brother was saying, when you can break that door and be able to go anywhere or go there, and just like, it don't only start with my generation. I believe that the Creator is sharp enough, smart enough to know that if I had to be judged today, He wouldn't give me the hellfire, as we say hellfire, because you have to know that ain't your fault. We learned that from some generations ago. I couldn't be the omni of my mentality and say, you know, I mean, the judge don't do it different, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But deep down inside the soul, many people say, I don't know how I got here. I know me and my drug addiction was somebody said, try this. I know that. You know, it wasn't like I came out the womb saying, where the cops? So, but once I start uncovering and finding out, discovering where this came from, I'm like, wow, can you believe that I got that far out there? And I remember I had 1 year clean, and I went to see my man, well, I'm gonna call his name because I want that vibration to be strong, Rick James. And I told Rick, and I got the picture too of he and I, with my keychains where I had 1 year clean, and I said, Rick, I don't use no more. He said, man, fuck that. You know, man, I'm sorry, excuse me for the, words that been bothering anybody in that way. I just want to be, quote unquote, man, have a drink.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the power of me understanding and being convinced and convicted that I was lost was my first opportunity for the prodigal to return home. In the midst of everything. Being in it but not of it. Being in it but not of it. Next time I saw Rick, he had an oxygen tank and was still smoking cigarettes with an oxygen tank. And I'm glad I said that because the sister is still living and went to see him with me. So I'm just saying that to say, once the mind does what we call in another order, repent, just turn around and see where you're going, man. When you really get a good picture of where you're going, you start allowing people to be wherever they are in their journey. Not even that I'm somewhere. I mean, it ain't like my house is like Jay-Z's house. But I realize that if I keep putting 1 foot further in front of each other in whatever I want, I don't care if it's completing a 70-page book, you're going to get it done.
There's a lot of merit in the idea of how your thoughts influence your environment.
Yes.
In your internal environment, the self-talk,
you know, the messages that continue to play out in your own mind or the environment that's around you. You know, it's hard to trust other people if you don't trust yourself. It's hard to accept other people if you don't accept yourself. You know, and then to the brother's point, very often enough, it's not hard to see how people engage with one another in this me versus you, enemy, you know, kind of viewpoint. You know, I know Brother Kevin speaks about reasoning with progression. Let's talk and conversate. If we have differing views and perspectives, we can go higher. I can understand where you're coming from, you understand where I'm coming from. But I have noticed by the time it's reason for ego. And I'm trying to, you know, convince you to come on over to my side and see things how we see it in so many ways. It could be from all in different examples. And it's so interesting with these automatic responses. Even though we might even a lot of times know there's a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different ways to view things. So let it be something that we're really passionate about, or that we feel like we're convicted. All of that shuts down, because like Minister Sar said, that frontal cortex, that part of the brain, the automatic triggers, that goes out, and then that's when people become defensive, and that's when some of these you could revert back to the default in the way that we're normally accustomed to being. So, you know, there's a lot of things that can be done to be able to even help us be more mindful in the moment, so we can catch ourselves before we revert back to some of these tendencies and these habits. But once again, I think that definitely the environment that we create has a lot to do with our thinking and what we've internalized. And they say what's internalized in some way will manifest itself, it will reveal itself in some way, shape, or form.
I can say, I think, I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard it in here. Was, you know, as far as being able to, like, I would say healing or elevating is many times counterintuitive. Many times that goes back to even the power of the subconscious in a sense, or the power of the conscious. I would say that it's counterintuitive because lots of times we go with what we feel is right. We go with what we feel is right. And in fact, even from a mental health perspective, many times it's very difficult for us to see how we're stepping on our own foot. And our bodies say what is being brought to me is a threat, hence we shut down. And even historically, especially if we're talking about the black community, our experience here in the U.S., there's memories that live in us that we don't even know, which prevent us from sometimes, or many times, or even most of the times, sometimes really getting the best assistance we can. Because we live in a state of fear. So we as Brother St. Cola said, we struggle with trusting ourselves. But even when we talk about this word trauma that Brother Kevin brought out, trauma is major, and trauma puts us in an altered state of reality, and often leading or emotionally reasoning. There's nothing wrong with emotionally reasoning. There's nothing wrong with the subconscious. There's nothing wrong with these feelings until we believe that all feelings are facts. or we believe that is, I think somebody else said, Brother Kevin said, the intellect. Because see, it's an interesting thing, because intellectually we keep ourselves, some of us are very intellectual in our way of dealing, and some of us are very emotional in our way of dealing. And too far either way becomes out of, as you said, my brother, you said it becomes, I can't think of the word you said, but you're not really regulated, you're not really balanced. So that becomes a problem. And lots of time I see in our community, we uplift what we call the spiritual over the intellectual, or vice versa. But really the spiritual over the intellectual, when it really should be a fine merge of both. And really, I can't really see how intellectual is not spiritual. You know, I just can't see that. And two, just to kind of cap it off, you know, sometimes we get so caught up in intellectual, even when we call it spiritual. Some of the most spiritual people I know are quote unquote atheists or scientists, and we believe that science is bad. We believe, a lot of times we believe that atheists are bad. So we have a lot of things that go on, and hence we get into this us against them mentality. We think that a brother that is, what's your background as far as if you can just throw a label ethnically or what have you?
A scientist.
A scientist ethnically? Not ethnically.
European, just European.
I'm all over the place. I don't know my wife says I'm a mutt.
So what would the world see you as, identify you as?
White guy, I guess.
Okay,
Old white guy.
all right, we can stick with that right now. So as a white guy here, and they will see him as a threat, an enemy, and he could be the one who has the fortune cookie. So, but because of our experiences, we will miss that fortune cookie.
Wow. Yeah, I say is that some aspect of the best body of knowledge is creation. We know that the first flag is the sun, the moon, and the stars. And they're all in harmony with one another. What is the buzz? What? Let's share something with you. The moon. First you have the light of consciousness that shines in the dark. You cannot see your way, but you have a light of obedience and truth lit in your mind, and it will keep the light on until the sun comes up. When the sun comes up, the moon takes a back seat. Sometimes the moon survives the night, and it is out with the sun, meaning spontaneously, just like light. You will have a spontaneous illumination. Your illumination will be spontaneous as the lightning flashes out of the east unto the west. Lightning is spontaneous illumination. It gives you vision. Elijah Muhammad said vision stems from the source of one's thinking. It gives you vision for a little while, and it is cut off. Don't you see it clear? It is now. It starts from the east. The east is symbolic of the baby state, the beginning of the dawning of the mind. The east is the dawning of the mind, but it's going to take you all the way to the west. It is going to take you to a point where you want to see beyond this world. To see beyond this world, the spiritual light has to go out. The sun has to set. Then you will see the universe on the black pattern, on the law of the heavens, as it says. Now when you get that understanding from the law of the heavens, you understand it is not to go up there, it is to be applied down here.
Got that. Yeah.
So,
who's that on?
I'm going to have to share it after discussion. But, don't rush, I will. But listen, but it says here, when the rational mind pursues something to the extent that is against its nature, it can no longer distinguish between harm or health, myth from reality, disease between health. As a result, one perceives sickness as a health. That's serious. when you do things that is contrary to your nature, you go to the extent of it, you perceive sickness as a health. That is challenging. The question is, how do we distinguish, fact from fiction? How are we to distinguish from race and racism, black and white, rich or poor, reality, and once again, fiction? How do we distinguish that?
See, it's like everything that we bring up always comes back to the same source for me, because it's controversial because it's the way of the world. And so it's like we all were born, raised in this. This is who we are. So we're all perfect. We're all perfect. The challenge is that the perfect of our mathematics don't add up according to natural law. If I take this here, this is gravity. Right? So all of us have experienced gravity hundreds of thousands of times. Well, water, we drink water, so we don't dehydrate. We bathe in water so we don't smell. No matter how good you swim, you don't go too far in the ocean. You don't go too close to the end of your rooftop, you may fall, break your neck, kill yourself. Now, we're all conscious of the law of gravity, and we're conscious of the law of water. So we're obedient. But what about the millions and thousands of laws that we're not conscious of, that we're not paying any attention to? And that's all I write about all my life. That's all I'm talking about. So we talk about issues that are affecting humanity. It is because laws that we are disobedient to, that we're not conscious of. And so we beat ourselves up every day not understanding the law. The definition of devil, scripturally, is those who oppose the laws of God. The word devil is not a negative thing. It is the scripture helping us to understand that we become absolute devils because we are opposing the natural law of God. God, that which created the heavens and the earth, however we define it, created the heavens and the earth for our benefit, for our purpose, to guide us, to direct us, to make us whole. The law is a part of us. So when you are not conscious of something that's a part of you, you're subject to the consequences. That's a law too, the law of consequence. So for me, every time we say something, I bring up the same point every time, is because we have never been taught from the law. That's by design in this world. In this world, we were not taught of the law for its reason, so that you could be manipulated and controlled by men. So what I'm saying is there's nothing I can really say to a subject without talking on this subject, because it's what? The foundation of everything. Without the law, I'm just sitting there saying, well, I shouldn't say anything.
What's the law? I mean,
Which law are you
maybe
talking about?
clarify what.
Law of attraction.
The Hebrew, the
Law of
Hebrew
cause and
law of the
effect.
statute, or Ten
What law
Commandments?
is?
I mean,
No,
what is the
commandments
law?
ain't no law. Commandments are commandments, just like it says, 10 commandments. The commandments were designed to command people
I'm asking
who were
you,
not.
I'm asking you what, because some people in Hebrews call that the laws and statutes. What I'm trying to figure out, so what laws are you speaking to?
Well, universal laws, just like I demonstrated using gravity or water, that there's laws that govern everything. And when we're obedient to those laws,
Where do we find those laws? Now, we know gravity, control, all that, but these laws, going back to what Mom and Donnie said earlier, where are they? Where can we find them? Because
You have to figure it out from experience.
oh, is that what
I
you
mean, I would
guys
say-
agreeing on this?
I would say cause and
Yeah.
effect, right?
People are writing about them now. Like, remember the law of attraction when it hit Oprah Winfrey?
Okay,
I have been talking about the law of attraction 25 years before it.
the law of attraction.
Right,
Okay.
now, that law of attraction, somebody said discovered it, and therefore they started talking about their experience. Well, that's all the Bible is. There's people
So
who
we have
discover
to,
law.
so we have to experience it. Is that what it is? Or
We are experiencing it every day.
can we be taught? That was her question.
Sure, sure we can be
So,
taught.
okay, how do we become taught?
You're taught by law by people who have experienced it, become aware of it, and then share their experience as being taught.
So how do one know if that person experienced it? Can you tell if someone experienced it?
I can tell you when you experience gravity. I can tell you when you experience water. So of course I can tell you, because it's all manifesting on the physical
Can an
level.
atheist experience that?
Sure,
Okay.
it's universal. Everything in the universe is universal. It's not.
Observation.
Can a Christian experience that?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. And the reason why I say is because at times we speak and sometimes it seems like we leave these people out, especially when various conversations. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to deal with this law thing because
That's important.
under the teachings that Paul and I have been privy to, when you deal with the law, it has something to do with your humanity. And your humanity, it says, governed by the law of conditional, unconditional love, whatever. But it's humanitarian. And some have a problem with the word humanitarian itself. But when I think of the law, I think of how we use our talents, our skills, our resources, and our abilities, to make us better and to make the world better. And I know that if there's any law, it is called a universal law. And I think they hang on two things. I think that oneness is stronger than conflict and unity is stronger than diversity. So what I'm trying to say is how we use these things and how relevant we can make them and tangible for this plane of existence. Remember I said earlier, when you think you can go so that what you have went so high on, that what you learn, it need to be applied right here. Because if there isn't any law, it is a law that says what goes up must come down.
Right.
That's a natural law. If you do anything that is contrary, try to do anything contrary to that, then you are disobedient and then you're going against the law.
So would the principle of a thing be synonymous with what we would call law? As when they say every herb, every seed brings forth fruit of its kind. Wherever you plant the seed of a desire, or wherever you plant an apple seed, I'm saying.
I got you the key word though, because we're dealing with language and words are relative. We live in a word oppressive environment. You say because I've learned that every thought begins with a seed. Now, we have these standards. Somebody set these standards of good or bad, or whatever that means. These are standards somebody else set. For me, there is no such thing as an absolute. But it's a minor way how things are cultivated. And how cultivated is contingent upon one's intentions. Because intentions is judged by your action. If you look at media, press, and television, or movies, the imagination is coming through the mind of someone. That's their thinking. That's the reality that they are giving to you. That's not your reality. But we have accepted that reality. So that means that we're dealing with some conjecturer or a master magician. And a master magician will never let you know his tricks. So we be caught up in all these tricks and all these trades, and it is really getting the best of us, and it's mentally disturbing us, whereas that our emotions, we're hiding and covering our emotions, and we're taking it out on ourselves and then the wrong people. So we have to dispel these myths between being able to distinguish reality, because when we say black or white, we know there is no such thing biologically. That's something that came up conceptually. So it is a social construct that we're dealing with. And this is how we're able to distinguish fact from fiction.
But I'm gonna go back to law and principle. I understand that the sharing on that, but the overly pontificating got us a little tiny bit away from law and principle. I'm saying.
Me pontificating got away from that?
Yeah, no, you said a lot.
No, but let me be clear, because anytime somebody uses a word for me, pontificate, I don't pontificate anything. I'm going to prove it because you said
that was expostulating.
No, because when you deal with culture, when you're dealing with institutions, you're dealing with principles, and you're dealing with trends.
Okay, we could agree on that. So what I'm saying is, if I plant an apple seed, or if Brother Shah plant an apple seed, if the sister here plant an apple seed, it's law, it's principle, there's going to be an apple tree to grow. Can we dispute that?
Yes, we can.
How?
Because all seeds don't take root.
No, but I'm saying if we properly, let's go back to his word, if we properly cultivate, I'm not speaking about.
Okay. Well, if it's properly
somebody
cultivated,
Yeah, and that's a good point to say, that if this thought is not properly cultivated, will it take root for us to stand in the way that we have to stand for a household, a society, a self, a future, or whatever? I don't care. So I just want to stay with, because I don't want to go too far off.
So I can go with that.
I want to stay here with, if you properly plant a seed, that's principle / law. If you jump in the water, principle / law, you're going to get wet.
Yes.
How do we know that? If you stay in the sun too long, I don't care if you light skin or dark skin, it's gonna affect you. That's a fact. So I'm saying there are laws that, as we observe, you know, we could get into law, man-made law. Is there a nature-made law? When sperm touched the egg, I'm going back to that law, something happened. You came, I came, whether we were slowed down or whether we were sped up, retard, or whether we were super genius. Something happens in that process. Those, like you were saying, they're different types of laws. Not like the man ran through the red light law, although that's a law, or the man ran through the stop sign law, that's a law, or it's a law not to hit a lady. I mean, I understand those laws, but I'm saying we put that law right here. But then here's another law. There are some natural laws. There are some natural laws that even create what they call natural disasters. You can't stop those. So I'm saying if I was to look at that and use some of that and put, like I think you used them and some of the brothers up there used them and said, hey, I'm gonna plant the seed of study. I'm gonna concentrate on this. I'm gonna keep putting this kind of time into this. It's a guaranteed fact something is gonna happen. Just like somebody, I mean, ignorance excuses no one from the law. Oh, I didn't know that the stove, but guess what? You still got burned. And you still said, ouch. You wasn't in touch. And if you take the T off the touch, I don't know where this came from, this just came to my mind. You're gonna say, ouch. You're gonna say, ouch. So it's imperative that one stay in touch with the law.
So when I'm still wrestling my clarity over it, because I do what you say. Then I'm listening to what Paul is saying, and
Let me give you an example.
there's a lot of different types of laws being talked about.
That's what I said.
And I feel like personally, I'm all over the place with really understanding what.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Because, of course, there's man-made laws,
Right.
which are all being derivatives of the natural law, the spiritual laws that govern everything. There's nothing happening that's not governed by law. So let's just be very, very clear on it. Nothing. Your emotion is governed by law. Now, what I have found in my research and study, the biggest challenge I see with humanity, we deal with the physical world and not dealing in the spirit world. In my travel throughout this country and around the world, is there are people in other countries that are much more aware of their spirits
That's right.
than we are in this country. This country, we are very naive of spirit. Very, very unconscious or just naive of the spirit. I've seen 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in other countries come up to the minister and say, get these spirits out of me. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds know about this stuff? And so when I got back to the States, I was in Trinidad. When I got back to the States, I was sitting on the bus and I could just see into the spirits of other people. And I guess that's probably just a heightened gift of me because of who I am as a spiritual person. And I was looking at these spirits and other people looking back at me. Now some people would say, Brother Saul, that mother lost his mind. You see what I'm saying? Because it's all based on your experience. Now,
What do you mean by that? I mean, like I can see into the spirits.
I'm looking at people and I can see spirits on them looking back at me.
Okay.
Now, because my journey has been constantly interacting into the spirit world, I like to help people understand the spirit world more by demonstration. So I said, well, if you don't really believe it, when you're ready, let's have some spirit time or meditation time or soul searching time so you can begin to interact with this spiritual world at a level of maturity. Because what most of us have done is spent our life running from accountability, starting with self, the power of personal accountability. And therefore we live in a world that, you know, we can have a president stand before the world and say, well, I'm not accountable. The president. And it becomes commonplace. So we have some real challenges on this physical plane because that there's such a denial, such a, as we talk about the subject, such a ego's defense. And so when you're dealing in the spirit world with source, that doesn't exist. When you're dealing with spirit, you are like this. You are a mirror reflection of yourself. You understand the law of attraction, and everything in your environment you're bringing to you. You're attracting it. So the universe is designed for you to see yourself in everything that you do. You can't escape it. So if you're doing righteous, righteousness reflects you. If you're doing unrighteous, unrighteous reflects you. It is the universal system to bring you into consciousness. Everything is designed in the universe to bring you into oneness with the universe. And so that's what all the laws are designed to do. They're all obedient. It's like when you eat a broccoli or some type of plant, the nutrients in the plant already knows exactly to go into your body. It knows what to feed. So everything has already got a design on it based on natural law to do what it does.
Okay, all right, so
Okay, can I ask you something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you said you saw the spirit when you got on the bus or whatever. You saw the spirit.
So many spirits.
Physical eyes?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Did he see the
I was
spirit
looking with
with
my
his
physical eye.
physical eyes?
Oh,
I was looking with my physical eye, but the good question is, was it?
Okay,
Then I was
can
seeing
you
with my physical eye.
describe?
you don't think you was looking?
Describe what a spirit looked like.
You see the movie, the movie called Ghost?
Yeah.
I would say it was in that type of term, but not big shadow, just small energy.
I haven't seen the movie.
And I can tell you, I can go on and on. I mean, that's just one experience. I got many experiences like that.
Well, give me another one.
I was with a pastor one day, and a brother came up who lived in her community, and he said, "Get this spirit out of me." And so she started talking to him. He was homosexual. She started praying with him. He got on the floor, the ground, he was outside, and started moving and hissing like a snake. And as she's speaking, in the dialect, the chant, she starts to say, homosexual spirit, come out of him now, And so just watching and experiencing for years, seeing the interaction with the spirit world, it heightened my awareness to realize that the more that you're conscious of the spirit, in other words, you can't do things against your nature without calling on the spirit. And here's the demonstration of that. Before you do anything outside of your nature, what do you do in your mind before you take action? You begin to justify the behavior through dialogue. And what happens is the energy shifts, and they say you watch the eyes because the spirit is the eyes window to the soul, so you can see in the eyes the shift when it occurs. So like one guy said, yeah, you better call my mother talking to her son now. You better call my parents because you don't know who you're dealing with. See, it's the energy change that we're calling on a force because your nature does not allow you to operate outside of your nature until you call on a force that's willing to do it. Those forces are what we have contracted, consciously or unconsciously, in our just natural physical life over time.
I felt spirit, and etc. But to actually say that I have seen spirit, I just wanted to know.
I think because there's people who have different gifts and stuff like that, because don't think I want to see this stuff. It ain't something I was like, please Lord, let me see this. This is stuff that has been brought upon me because I guess I came in for this reason. Like I was in a situation once where same pastor now, so it must have been something me and this Pastor Carnal was connected up in her complex because we were doing like a ministry together. And we were leaving, we were coming back from somewhere, and this young girl comes up to her or us and goes, this girl, no, she didn't come up, but she was running. And Pastor Carolyn took it upon herself to go ask the girl, what's going on? So she said, my best friend, she just OD'd. So Pastor Carolyn was like, take us to her. So, I think I might have said that. Anyway, it was almost like bewitched when your nose twinkles and all of a sudden I'm out of my body doing something I wouldn't normally do. Normally I try to mind my own business. And so I must have said, take us to her. So we went up into the complex where the girl was. The girl had been revived through the shower. Somebody was holding her. Now, when I say this, what I experienced, I can't say somebody else in the room experienced the same thing. But the girl appeared to be gone. She was no longer physically there. And Pastor Carolyn, we started going up the steps. She started speaking in tongues. And then when we got there, she said, Talafakuna. When she spoke that word, I saw the word hit the girl. The girl's hair flipped back over. I saw her spirit resume into her body. Now, can I physically say I saw that? That's what I think I saw. But I'm saying, that's what my testimony is to you. But I don't know if I physically saw her, but I know I experienced that. Now, I'm not here to share that experience with anybody to say, you gotta believe me. So see, based on years of this journey I've been on, I've been like, I don't care about what people believe, what I understand, experience. You understand? Because I'm not here for that purpose. I'm not here to convince people of anything. I'm here to help people tap into their resourcefulness so that you can do what you come here to do. That's what's clear to me. Where I've had people who've been very religious more so, because I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And so religious deals with rituals, spirituality deals with relationship. So the relationship I've had with the creator or the creators has guided me to say, look, I got your back. Don't worry about nobody else. You ain't got to convince nobody of nothing. Just understand what I told you to do and get on your way. And so I'm clear on that. And so that's what I do every day. I'm here to say, I come to make known the unknown. Well, we all have. But it's only when you're ready.
I have a question. You said the relationship with your creator. Would you say it is a relationship with your experiences rather than your creator?
Both. It's definitely a relationship with my experiences. But it's with my creator because I have to acknowledge the source. See, what my journey has told me is when I'm not acknowledging the source, I'm doing myself a disservice. It's just like me taking something you said and owning it and not giving you the credit. There's motive there.
Yeah, but when I got you. But when I think of source, I think the source of all life is water. That's what I think of the source.
Yeah.
Because when we say,
Physical life.
yeah, when
Or
we say,
physical life.
when we say, creator or God or whatever, that's just a concept. Before anything is created, there's mind. But when we deal with the word possess, because you're talking about spirit possess, having to or belonging to one's to one own is like complete power over you. It is manifested through speech and action. Possess. We're going to move on and we're going to come to a close.
Can we,
Yeah.
because
Go ahead, you want to
this
go
thing just kind of makes your brain comes to life.
Yeah.
It's spiritual, So I kind of want to go back to the law thing. The whole idea of, like the law of attraction and all these type of things. I mean, that's cool. I think there's some relevance there, but is that a universal law? I think there's the verdict is out. Is there? So everything that happens to us is a result of what energy we put out.
For the most part.
So now, see, universal laws you said are 100% exact. Now you're saying for the most part.
Well, the law is exact, but there's other factors.
So there's other factors.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Exact and
It does what it does.
Okay.
It exactly does what it does.
So-
Now, see, what you're doing is you're asking a question that has to do with other understandings of laws. Laws interact with each other, too.
We just said laws. We
Right.
didn't say anything else than that.
But I'm saying they interact with each
So
other.
laws. So you're saying there's layers of laws.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's sub-laws.
So okay. I mean, I think I get it.
Mhm.
I think I can agree with it. But I think we simplify things too much. And what I mean, it's simple.
But it helps when we simplify.
Well, I'm talking about simplified till you can't understand. And you understand, that's a whole different simple. You understand somebody who's so simple they can't talk? You're gonna have a hard time to understand it. So what I'm saying is, we simplify it so much.
I think it's the opposite. I think we complicate.
I think you're trying to
I think
complicate
it's
this.
Well, I'm
It
not
really is
finished. I'm
simple.
not finished. I'm not
Universal
finished.
law
I'm not finished. Let me
works
finish.
whether you believe it
Okay.
or not.
Have
It's
you-
the law.
Have you noticed that I sat here and I didn't cut over anybody? Yes. Okay. That spiritualness is also groundedness. So, what I would say is, and I'm tired. I'm sorry. If y'all see me doodling over here, I didn't get any sleep last night because I was in the trip, and that's probably what so my mind is like kind of, if you don't go, if you go up, you gotta come down. Yeah, I ain't go down yet. So, that's why I drove from Pennsylvania. So, what was the debate? See, to me, this becomes a religion.
Law.
Yeah, law becomes
Law
a religion.
becomes a religion.
Yeah, it becomes somebody else's religion. Everybody has, you understand what I'm saying? I think there are some laws, but I think there's some things we just don't understand. There's some things that we as human beings don't understand and don't know. And we act like we know it, but we don't. And then, so, just like biblical stuff, just like laws, everybody has their idea. You do what you do with it. But understand there's other ways of seeing and experiencing, and people are just as fine and okay.
Let me ask
And
you a
they don't know anything about law. And they don't even practice that.
Let me ask you this question. The law of attraction. Do you think the law of attraction, how it works, in
Like The Secret?
Baltimore, yeah.
I don't, but
Baltimore,
that is,
DC.
I was there. I said, look, you know what? My belief is, I looked at The Secret, I don't need glasses. That's what they taught me in The Secret. I don't need glasses. If you believe you don't need glasses, don't say, I need glasses, I don't need glasses, just say, just do it. And you know, it worked for a while until I started reading. You know, so what I'm saying, and my eyes started twisting on me, you know what I'm saying? So what I mean
But that's
is,
not the law of attraction.
well, that's one of the ways, no, that's an exact example in the
That's
actual
somebody's
movie.
taking you,
Hold on, that's an exact example
right,
in the film itself.
right,
You got what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm just give you one example.
right.
Well, you didn't see it, but I might not have saw something you didn't see. So what?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, so we all don't remember things the same, right? And we all don't pick up on certain things. I had glasses, so I didn't want to wear the glasses. So that stood out to me. You understand? So
basically, what law does in terms of attraction and other laws, because it is a order that is operational, it has to do with following the order. So a person can say, I want a new Mercedes, and start perceiving they want a new Mercedes. It doesn't mean because they're doing that, one is going to appear in their garage. It is a physical labor that goes with law, that the work has to be done.
So now there's a physical labor.
Always been.
Now, I'll
See,
say
let's be very clear too. Let's be very clear. This is not Paul's way. I'm talking about years and years of research and study of humanity. So when I'm saying things, it's verifiable.
But keep what he said. He said he understand what he was saying. He said now there's a physical aspect to this.
and
It's
that's,
always
That's not
been.
dead. Now
But
you
it's
started
always
off
been.
saying the physical and the carnal is not real, it's dead. Now you gonna tell me you didn't say it on the last
But
film
you-
we was
but
on,
you
but
gotta
you
put
said
it-
it today.
but
I'm
you
gonna
gotta
want
put it
that
in
tapes again.
context. Why am I saying it? I'm saying it to discourage you
Okay.
to stop prioritizing it in your life as if it's God.
Also as a motivator.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I say things. See,
So
I'm
but
never
is it
saying
actual
anything
fact
to be
or what? Is it a
contradicting.
law? Is it dead?
What? All the matter falls under the law. It has to be obedient.
Is it dead?
Matter is dead without a life form. So you gotta say the whole statement I'm making. I'm never just making a statement to be
Well,
making a statement.
well-
I'm speaking into a law. The matter has no life. That's all I'm saying. So why would we worship something that doesn't have life?
Matter? Is this matter?
The flesh?
You.
The flesh?
Yes.
The flesh is
Yes.
matter.
Oh, is that dead?
Without the life, yes. When that energy source leaves it, it's dead, isn't it?
Okay.
So see, and here's what I'm trying to make, here's the point I'm trying to make with law when I'm saying this. I'm saying that when we understand energy, matter, and elements, and we put it in perspective according to law, why are we spending time looking at matter different than what it was created for? When I look at that car outside, it was designed to get me from point A to point B. That's what the car was designed for. You got people looking at that car and marvel, oh my God, that is a 2021, a 2022, and it's all, and I'm like, and it's gonna get you from point A to point B, just like my Toyota. That's what I'm talking about.
brother boy.
It's misleading people to not understand the resource, the power of themselves. When we worship the outside world, we begin to denigrate the spirit. We begin to denigrate the small person, the person that's lesser, the person that's homeless. We begin to elevate the matter and we begin to lower our own potential.
I mean, you know, I know you say you ain't trying to do a lot of convincing, but I don't know. But I'll say this.
But I'm speaking back.
Now,
I'm not
look,
speaking
I'm
back.
not gonna. I'm not knocking what you're saying. I think over the course of our conversation, there's been a number of things you said that for me that I can get with. But I think that in your presentation and how you articulate what you have to say, it seems almost as if, I'm sure you probably got a response to this, but it seems almost as though the universe is packaged, this is what it is, and there's no, we're talking about the universe, which is supposed to be vast, it's supposed to be limitless, it's supposed to be too much, too infinite for our limited point of, but the way you present what you say, it would seem as though it's like it's
Organized.
It's organized and there's no room for any new perspective or new ideas, concepts, nothing. And so it seems like you're oversimplifying something that is too much to be simplified to begin with.
I think too, Sam, I think it's not so much that the universe is that how maybe Brother Paul, and I don't represent him or anything, how he organized his thoughts.
Okay.
You know, so I think that's,
And I think the reason why first I'm very passionate on the subject because I spent most of my life watching people complain about stuff they're creating.
Mm-hmm.
So be very clear on why I'm so passionate.
Mm-hmm.
I got people coming to me talking about these issues they're having in their life, and I'm showing them you're creating them. So won't you release it? And so what I'm saying is the simplification that I do has come from a mathematical equation. It is that the writing that I do, this is all math. These 22 chapters is mathematics. This is not me just saying, this is Paul's opinion. I'm saying, that's the law of gravity. So there's 22 chapters verifying that your life is what you're creating.
yeah, to yours, to defense of language and writing, you know, signs and symbols is nothing but math itself. So
Yeah.
there's not nothing unique when you say that it's all math. But listen, but the first law, the first law of the universe is motion. Before there's motion, there's sound. But we want to bring this to a close. We didn't even get into
Yes.
the 10 common ego
We didn't have much
mechanisms.
time.
You know what I'm saying?
Kevin.
Yeah.
One thing. I do agree with Paul when he says that we create some of our reality, but that is not to say that we're not a part of something. And that, I think, see again, it's almost like a rape victim comes to you and say, I'm having flashback, there is some degree of that going on, but you created that. I can see how one could say that, but that's not to say that person did not have an experience. And I don't think you're saying that. But what I am, but this is what it sounds like.
That's what it sounds like?
Yes, and this is again.
Sounds like you did.
But I understand. I understand you're on a higher spiritual level. Understand? You understand? No. I'm not being facetious. But what I'm suggesting is to most people. It ain't about the where the light and those who walk around and sit on the fig trees and things like that. I am not talking to that group. I'm talking about the masses of the population. I am not talking about the people in this room. I'm talking to the people with that camera, who when they hear that says to them that you are your own problem, and you're the reason why you got raped. You're the reason why your people are oppressed. You're the reason why this. You're the reason why that. You're the reason. What I'm saying, I understand, because you can get locked in a place and blockages. I can understand all what you're saying. It's not, other than it becomes a little dogmatic at times. So, yeah.
You do know, Brother Dennis, I don't approach this subject by letting people believe that they are their own problem. That's
But I'm saying, but the way, but if you, I said that.
But there's been years
I said that. I can get you. I get you. But what I'm saying is, I know you understand when you hear him the first time you listen, but I am suggesting you guys have been on journeys. You have been on journeys. You've been on a journey. You've been on a journey, but I'm talking about the rest of most of the people out here.
You know, so what I'm
You've been on
saying
that
is,
journey.
so when we hear it, we have to be responsible
That's true.
with how we put things, because most people are out there deluded, and when they hear you, they stay deluded. Not that you mean that. Not that you mean that. But the way that it's been articulated, it becomes a pie in the sky. You say you're not pie in the sky. But most people, that sounds very pie in the sky when we talk the way we talk.
But
And then it
that's-
sounds, it's,
I gotta say that, because I gotta run, but that is, once again, I understand the 4 different concepts up there. You are absolutely right on that. I see where Paul is coming from, and I'll tell you why. I'm not just riding nobody, because the last thing anyone wants to feel is like the insensitivity. And not being sensitive of a thing, although it's their reality, and you may have the solution. Like somebody say, I just don't understand this math. And you tell them, or I tell them, try harder. Guess what? It's gonna still be a problem because you haven't interjected a different formula or approach to look at it to get themselves out of it. So I understand where a man would come to, a doctor and say, I've been raped or whatever like that, right? And then he say, look, you gotta go above that. But you can't go above that without understanding, accepting the fact that I need the sensitivity to understand, okay, this has happened, because it has happened. And then we're gonna try to do the best we can do with coming out of the trauma, as we've been using that word. We gotta get out of the trauma so we can be functional, or you don't impose that on nobody else.
Now, you on point. I appreciate you bringing it up, because we want to be clear that don't say that the individual created the problem. You're placing more, you're re-traumatizing that person from a therapeutic point of view. I don't know, say therapy, but I'm.
and that's what this is about.
Yeah, because everybody knows Tammy Terrell. I mean, not everybody. If you heard of Tammy Terrell, she was taken advantage of at a young age. And it's a reflection of the community and the culture. And she thought that was accepted. You know what I'm saying? Because nothing was done about it. So it is a community that's a reflection of the culture. Then she went on to start living, what they call a so-called promiscuous lifestyle.
Yeah.
But so it's not just the individual created,
Yes.
it's a reflection of the culture. It's humanity, it's a reflection of the culture. But anyone want to share something, because we want to bring this thing to a close. Really, we want to bring it to a close. It's been pretty, it's been grand.
Let me say one more quick thing on this thing. That's on this tower. One of the most important things in any type of work dealing with spirituality, because of the condition of the planet and the people, is you can't help anybody without their permission. So the first thing you gain from a person before giving them any insight on understanding themselves is their permission to want it.
But think about this, I get you, but we're here and we're in front of people, we're being recorded, and if we're not kept, that is going to touch more people, what's being said on the internet, than you touch on in one-on-one sessions. It's so much going out here that will touch and heal many more people on a social level, and then we can make up anything. But what I will say is, one last thing, is Kev started off, is it cultural? We can say it's individual. I agree, it is individual, but it's also cultural. It's not a this or that argument, and that's why I say we get dogmatic and stuck in our ways, because we're not looking at the whole picture. You are a piece of the picture. You are not. You are a piece of the picture, but you're not the whole picture. So things go on around you to have absolutely something. I'm not gonna say not anything to do with you, but that's out of your power.
Yeah, because like you said, I know that everything is always transacting with something else. Dr. King said, what affects one directly affects the other indirectly. But we want to bring it to a close, and I'm going to share something, because we didn't get to the 10 ego defense mechanisms. It talks about 10 common ego defense mechanisms that we encounter regularly on our day-to-day lives. It says your ego is your sense of self, or technically your ego is your conscious mind. We all desire to feel worthy and stay psychologically stable. Now when something happens that threatens our well-being or decreases our self-worth, our ego gets hurt in the process, and our psychological stability is disturbed. Any kind of emotional pain or trauma that we experience harms our psyche just like a physical injury harms our body. When you cut your hand with a sharp object, for example, your body's defense mechanism come into play, as the brother taught earlier, and heal your wound after some time. Similarly, when your ego is under a possible threat or has already been hurt in some way, there are certain defense mechanisms that are launched by our subconscious in order to protect it and maintain our psychological well-being. In other words, our subconscious mind employs these operations to protect our conscious mind from emotional pain. These defense mechanisms can sometimes be very helpful in allowing us to cope with a traumatic event, but at other times they just be a means of self-deception. And there were 10 ego defense mechanisms, and I'll just share them, and we ain't gonna talk about them, but maybe next time: rationalization, displacement, projection, sublimination, suppression, rejection, compensation, fantasy, escapism, denial, reaction, information. Closing remarks from the panel, and then we want to conclude. I want to thank all of y'all for your participation. Any closing remarks?
Thank you very much. Great meeting you all.
Been a pleasure, Sharon. Ashe and and love.
Closing remarks, Dennis and Cole.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing, thanks for joining, thanks for being, thanks for dialoguing, thanks for the patience and also the ability to go back and forth, you know, and just last, I'm very passionate, as Paul said, I'm passionate about people being responsible for themselves. I am also passionate about also, you can call it, you call it on yourself. You know, we have to grow. But also, that as it is above, so it is below. So what is going on inside of here is going on outside of there. So you can't just fix in here. You got to fix in here so that you can be an agent to fix out there. Because there's some issues out there that reside in here, and it's inside of here that reside out there. That's spiritual law.
What? You can
Thank you. I was going to say, thank you for establishing gathering and panel discussion. And I think it's important to, definitely have dialogue like this that we've had today, so perspectives can be exchanged. And one of the things I take away from the discussion is whether we agree or disagree, that's the key points. There's room for all. There's room for all.
Ivan Van Sertima talked about this one time. He talked about the Ivan Van Sertima talks about, and I'm making a association with this people who are here. He says some of the best, in reflection of this facility, some of the best artifacts are not in big museums. They're in museums, small museums that you don't know about. So one of the most effectiveness of what transpired here, it wasn't a broad group of people, but it was people here that were very compassionate, very loving, very caring, and it was very effective, This was very effective. So you want to give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand.
I forgot to say, and thank you, Brother Kevin, for putting this on, inviting me, allowing me to be a part of it. And I'm looking for that sit down with me and Paul.
Yes, sir. I want to say, Common Humanity Mission. Put on about Common Humanity Mission. It's called the SDLD. Was Paul help me with that? Dennis help with this two term. The SDLD is a social disorder learning disability. It's called the Social Restoration Project Toward Healing. Yeah, that's what this is all about. So, until next time, I want to say nothing but the best. Oh, by the way, for the record, I have to put it in there. Y'all don't know it, but I do have books out myself. These are my 3 books here. It was on camera. You can look at them. my camera, but yeah, I do have
They for
these
sale?
books. Oh yeah, everything's for sale there. So yeah, these are 3 books that I have for sale. One of them is poems, and the other one is manuscript. And I'm working on another book, which will be out pretty soon, on it's called the Restoration Project Volume 1, called You Can Make a Difference. It is the teachings of the organization that I established, and of course my father, Deacon Dennis, is a part of it. It's called Carnal Humanity Mission. It's the teachings of Carnal Humanity Mission. Yes. So once again, I want to say thank you, and as always, nothing but the best for everyone. Until next time, talk to you.
All right, Brother Paul.